Welcome. My name's Tom Urban. I'm president of the Esteban Corporation, along with my wife, my daughter Shelley, and 7 other employees. And I just wanted to thank you for watching this video. This is a long time coming to get this put together, this project that we've have. As a brief history, I just want to say where we're going and what we have. If you got there, then hopefully you see that you've got this. We have this book. 156 pages broken into modulars for each, from masonry fireplaces onto standard prefabricated fireplaces and all the other different categories modules we put together for you, so that you can see all about scanning inside chimneys and help you with the inspection process. So a little bit of a research back, so you kind of understand that this isn't kind of like a real quick thing that was put together. This project really started back in 2006 when we finished up the advanced D&D class and back in Plainfield, Indiana, and I began to realize that there's a gap here and something is not right, something we need to work at. And since I was on the original 1997 committee to put together the 2000 NFPA 211 code, I wasn't quite fulfilling what all of us members had in that committee, and I decided that it was time that we needed to come up with something. It's taken me 15 years, and a lot of changes have gone through, and I've worked on it a little bit and put it aside, worked on it, but now it's completed, and we put it in a format that we feel really comfortable with it. It's in a video format, so you can look at this anytime you want to. Want to do this 3 o'clock in the morning, you can. Want to do it partway in bed when you're listening, and I put you to sleep. However you want to do this, or work with your crews at your offices. This is what this was designed for. Go back and rewind me, go back and look at and listen to what I have to say. And the book here, we also designed this in such a way so, as you can see, we can flip the page like this, and it's a reference book, so you can go to any page or size that you want to, and things are right in front of you. So we really tried to make this so it's easy for you to work with. On top of that all, we did make it so, yes, it is factory training. Okay, well, I go, here we go. There it is. Oh gosh, yes, now I got it. Cameras are backwards. Anyhow, that's the reason we put the factory training together. We have we list it as 100 questions. You may be hitting up for 125 questions, but we give you plenty of time. Give you a couple hours for you to take the open book test. It's online. There's photographs in the questions. We ask you to tell me what this is, or where this happened, and how this all occurred. All those questions can be found on the test on the Google. It's a real simple process. We just give you the code word, you go to the link, you open it up, and begin the test. And as soon as you complete the test, it tells you whether you passed or failed. And then from there, we go ahead and get you a certificate of completion and get you some decals like this one, which, if I get that right, decals like this, and also something for your truck, or press-ons, however you call it. Anyway, let's just back up a little bit, because when you're starting a project of this magnitude, I realized a lot of things that needed to be covered. But first off, if anything else, do we have a market? Is scanning or is chimneys available right now, and how many are out there? What's the quota? Where's the goal? Where are we going, just besides every day going out and finding repair work? Well, we did some research with the National Realtors Association. We found it there. We also found the census. We wanted to see just how many people either heat with wood, or in this requirement, how many chimneys were built. So if I use the 70 to 2017 numbers that I got from the NRA, National Realtors Association, they said there's close to 80 million chimneys built in that time period. Well, since that time, how many chimneys now, or how many people now have homes that have direct vents, category for appliances? So a lot of that may have jumped down. So then I got to thinking, as I wanted to break this down so you kind of had an idea what I'm talking about, the size of our industry. If they said there's 80 million chimneys and everybody was using it, that's one thing. Let's say only 50% of the people, or 40 million chimneys were built. If there's somehow in this market, we figure around 10,000 chimney sweeps here, that's 4,000 chimneys a year, ladies and gentlemen, per company. So it's still a big market. If I use the numbers from the Census Bureau, and it says that 2% of the United States' population is heating with wood, that's 6.5 million people, or a low of 658 chimneys a year you need to look at if we have at least 10,000 companies. So there is a huge demand or need for people to be inspecting chimneys. And I don't know whether or not anymore it's going to be just with chimney sweeps alone. Home inspectors, we work with forensic engineers, we work with other companies, crossover from either masonry or interior designs, whatever, that all at some point in time work with chimneys. So we have sold chimneys to a lot of cameras to companies besides that of chimney sweeps. So when I look at the 38 years that we've been here, I'm asking myself, do we have a market? Is this going to be real? And in reality, yes, folks, it is bigger than we all think it is. So what we have to do as an industry, and the reason why I did the book, is I looked at all the different things that are out there right now. There's people that have programs, the apps, there's this, there's that. But the key factor that I began to realize is that there has to be a process of storing all the data that you have, plus the photographs that you have too. So documentation couldn't be in the form of, I wrote this down, I have a checklist, I have photographs, but they have to be categorized and they have to be kept in a file so that they're kept in a way that when you want to reference it, you can do it that way. As a matter of fact, the other day we were putting together a section for the summary forms that we designed. I did the job in 2010, and because the photographs and the way that I took them, I was able to recreate the report. That's documentation. That's really good process of being able to go back and redo the information that's necessary in a different format, and it worked out just perfectly. So the real key thing, the word that I'm really going to emphasize on is that we have to recalibrate the way we do our business. And we began to see it not only in how we do business, because we document everything coming in, document everything going out, repairs are made, documentation is kept, so that we know if something happens and someone calls and tells us, hey, this isn't working. And I said, yep. And then we go through and said, well, it's working here, so somehow between there and there, something happened. And at least we know that something through shipping or something, or someone did not check something properly. So that's what we do. So we've been doing it for over 15 years, just doing this type of documentation. So this is really, old school for us, and something that really needs to be addressed. When I look out and I hear people that are keeping all their photos on their cell phones, that's not a good idea. And if you lost your cell phone, there goes all your photographs. Ask anybody who's lost their photographs whether or not they'd like to have that, or they're going to tell you that they feel very remiss the fact that they don't have them. So we're going to try to do what we can to keep the processes together here, that you can go through it, and also talk about hard drives and things too, to help you, to understand what you need to do. So as I go through the book, in this section of it, I'm going to go through and talk to parts about it, also the intros that's necessary to go through it. And as I do go through that, I will make sure that I'm following along with what we have here, because this is being timed, and it's also, I've got the CEU credits for it. It is now class NFI 7870, so hopefully you see those numbers on the form when you start, so that you know that this is the class you're going to be taking. It is 5 CEUs. You have 1 for health and safety, because we will talk about your health and the safety of your environment when you're working, especially when you're scanning. We're going to talk about codes and standards. We're going to delineate those a little bit for you today, so you understand the differences between the two, because from NFI, not from NFI, but from NFPA and from the IRC, so you understand those differences. And 3 is going to be tech, so that it goes through the actual process of looking at the photographs. So with that said, we want to recalibrate your process. We want to look at a way that you can standardize things out there in the field. Why this is so important? As you've grown your company, and frankly, folks, I don't care if you're a happy camper as a 1-truck operator, 2-truck operator, or you want to be a 50-truck operator. One thing the 50-truck operators will tell you is if you don't get to the point of uniform the information you're bringing into it, it becomes a giant nightmare. So the thoughts that you have when you're a single operator can't work the same when you have 5, 10, or 15, or 20 trucks. All right, you have to change the modality on how you do the work you're going to do to keep everybody online. So uniformity of collecting data out in the field is like job 1. So if we can keep the regularity of information coming in with dimensions, photographs, and how you take the photographs and the copy that you use, it works so much better in that process than trying to do it as a one-man. Well, today, he needs this and he needs that. that's not going to work. So it's really, really critical. So this is why this is so important, is to help you. We want you to grow. The other thing we noticed too, and the reason that really pushed us into doing the book, is the questions that we start getting from people on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going to tell you how many folks have no idea how the camera system works. At least maybe once a month, this sounds terrible, but it does happen, we'll have someone call us and say, the camera's not working. Okay, it's not working. So let's go back. Get it plugged in? What? Do you have it plugged in? No. You got your plug in? Oh yeah, plug it in. Is it working now? Yeah. Okay. You need any other questions? Nope, we're fine. We began to see that the training that people have using the equipment was also beginning to be lacking in what they need to do. So that was the reason, again, why we started to work with the book. And we also, the questions that we began to hear from you out in the field, realized there was a real need for being able to explain this information. I could run around the United States and do seminars, whatnot, but I found out that this is going to be the easiest, fastest, cheapest way and the most effective way to get information in front of you, and then you can also refer to it in the future. So that's why the book may be expensive, but in the end result, the amount of information that's in this book in a way could hopefully help you educate yourself and also educate those customers that your technicians you have with you. So how we work this out was that what the CSF or the CSFT really is in the levels of inspections really incur that we have a diagram set up for you on each one of the modules that go through. So we put in the terminology. So we have people talking about the same thing instead of the flute or the flue or the thimble or the nipple or there's a variety of different terms that are used for different parts of the chimney. And we also took in graphic considerations. Obviously, if you folks in the Northeast and northern part of the United States will have crowns. If you go to the South, you're going to have splays or washes. Different application, but we made sure that the wording was in there so that you felt comfortable reading this, we put that to know. And also the differences between the annex. We also checked in with the annex, and what we did with that too, we simplified it a little bit for you by actually sorting. Because if you look at the 33 questions that are in the 211, it's really kind of, you this check that. Well, I did a level 1. Well, how did you do a level 1? Did you check the stovepipe on the fireplace? Well, yeah. Where's the stovepipe? Well, it'd be this area here. No, you're making this all up. There's no stovepipe on a fireplace, but there is on a wood stove. So we sorted those questions for you because I was in the room when we made these questions up back in 1998. I remember Jim Brewer putting these things on the wall, and he just listed everything as it was. But what needed to be done is it needed to be sorted. We sorted them for you. So if it has wood stove questions and slope and sizing and whatnot, that's going to be in place where you're going to have either a masonry thimble chimney that has a wood stove or a liquid fuel appliance, or it's going to be a prefabricated chimney that has a connector pipe. So you don't have to make up questions about this. And I'm sorry, folks, a fireplace is not an appliance. When you start doing it this way, you have to understand that it's a masonry built structure on site, and if an appliance is something that is purchased and brought on site. I had to make a ruling on it, and the ruling was that I had to do it this way. Because when you start doing the delineations between them, it made it easier for you to understand where to go next. So that's how we did that. Okay, so the how-tos. Again, I talked earlier about the differences between the codes and the standards that we have. So we will talk about the differences in IRC, and we'll also talk about the NFPA 211, Chapter 14 and Chapter 15. We do this because there is a really distinct difference between the two of them that you need to be aware of when you're inspecting chimneys. And we're going to also talk about the facts of the 4 pathways of deterioration. We set this up in the manner so if you do find a liner that's defective in some form, first off, you have to wait to verify why it is defective. And the next question people are going to ask you, how did it happen? So we also went through and broke down the pathways that allow you to understand if a customer they're looking at the scan with you and you look over and go, what's all that? And you can say, yes, that's water, or that's condensate problems, or it's open mortar joint, or whatever, or it's a latent defect. All those things come into play when you begin to put your copy together, how this thing happened. So we do that. We go through. I talk each one of what the latent defects are. That's in the book. It's on page 4. That is the start of everything. It's going to go from there. Then we're going to, as we go through the book, we decided there's going to be multiple books being made, but this one here is for Chim-Scan owners. So we did that so I could talk about product and stuff inside this book very easily and frequently. And the other part of this is also we have the flue and hearth notes in my other division that we have from C Corp Beckwith. We added those in there for you. We have the forms, we have summary forms, we have QR codes to go to those and look at any time you so desire. It's in the book, just scan it, and we have websites built up to show you what we do it. We're looking for a fast, direct, and quick, easy way to do inspections out in the field. One of the things, the many lessons all of us learned when we went through COVID is that, man, you have to be like on time, on spot, and people's reactions to how you are dressed or how you articulate yourself all became really, really critical. And we had this in place for a while, but we really didn't realize just how powerful it was until we began to look down and look at the summary form. And the way we've delineated things out, we make it look so complicated. But when we're talking about caps and rooftops, we could talk about caps and rooftops, and we can get everything covered that you would think there would be like in the annex in the 211. So we did this so you could break it down in sections, because a fireplace or any other installation that you have inside your home there'll be differences. They're not the same. That's the key thing about what we did with this, is we realized that every day we can go out and we'll always see an installation that's different, right? They're always different. But there's one factor that we all forgot about. That's the key factor, is that even though the installations are the same, or not the same, the defects are. And once you understand that the defects remain the same, then you can begin to categorize them, then you can begin to explain what they are, and you basically put that in a format that a customer can understand it. So that's the key factor, folks. It's not the installations of the differences that are out there, it's the similarities. If that's not the case, then how come you sell relining, caps, repair, resurfacing material, crown coating, you put that in there, but chamber coats, and a variety of other different things for fireboxes. So if that's not the case, it is true. So we work from defect, not from product, not from the installation. We work from the defect, and we clarify those defects as we go on. So that's when we're talking about recalibrating. That's what we're doing. We're recalibrating it, because there's more information. You know as well as I do, information is key to this day and age. And so it's important that we try to work in a manner that this stuff stays uniform between the people that bring it in. That is incredibly important, because you cannot, I repeat, cannot grow your company in a format or a way that you would like to do it to help the customer if you're going to be random nilly-willy. It's not going to work. Why do big companies get bigger and how would they do? That's simple. They take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 profit centers that's in their company and other services that they can offer, and that's what everybody has. That's what everybody needs. Not all the time, but a lot of big companies work that way. It's because you can't do every little thing that's out there. But you can if you categorize the defect and work accordingly. It is different, but it is very, very reasonable to do. So as I go through, so we have the forms that are in here for you. So as you're doing this and going through the book, I have already laid out for you checklists for you to look at. You want to work off our forms? Great. You have your own thing that's already set up. The forms we have can be done either in a fillable PDF on any app. You can use it in any application and attach it. You can put it in as just a standalone, as a, the way I used to do it, real simple. While we were going through development stages of this, I would have a colored piece of a form in front of me. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Finish it up. Yes, no. Time, dimensions. Put this in. Any other comments or notes I put down the bottom. I have it all set there and go, okay. And I'd look at the customer and said, where would you like me to send it? We got an email? Sure. Take my phone over, top the form. Very nice in color on the phone. Click, hit it. It is now a JPEG, and it's now on its way to the customer. It's that simple, or it can be complicated in a relational database. You choose. I don't care. All I want to do is make sure that you get a uniform format to you to work off of. That is key. So as I go through this, if you have, I go through on page 6, I talk about inspecting other flues inside the chimney, each form, each flue. Okay, so that's what you need to understand as you go through that. Does it take time? Not really. When you get this thing put down and you're cooking, I could do a whole form of the chimney. Besides climbing up and down, I could get it done in less than 10 minutes. And I've got 70, 80 questions just like that done. And I don't even have to think about it anymore. So it clears my head. Really cool thing about this is we've been doing it long enough, and we've had so many, no, I can't do this. This is too defective. I can't. It doesn't work with me. Interesting one came up one time. A gentleman said, "Well, he says, if I have to fill out a checkbox, you might as well just send monkeys out there to get it because I'm a professional. I do this, that, whatever." Yeah, you are a professional. You are a professional, but I know a lot of professionals who work off of checklists. Fire companies, EMTs. Airline pilots, and the list goes on, all the different people who have checklists. Why? Very simple, ladies and gentlemen. When you get your rudimentary stuff done on the in the application, all the questions that you've answered, you, the professional, begin to free your mind up and begin to look at a solution for the customer. Because sometimes it's a little bit convoluted, and if you do this or you do this, you can change the format of what the repair is going to be. That's where the professional comes in. So what I'm trying to do is give you a rudimentary platform to work off of. So once this is put in place, everybody in the company follows it. And if not, then we have that come to Jesus meeting. So when we go through that. So when I began this process, if you're gonna judge something, if you're gonna have to make a decision on something, then obviously what's the thing you need? You need a verification. You need an ideal. Once the ideal has, then the comparison between the two can become realistic. So where do you get your verification? That, if you're working with masonry fireplaces, is going to be from the IRC. Okay, it's a site-built application within your state. Some states have their own codes. Other ones are going to be using and have adopted a year that's used within a state. Some municipalities will also pick something different. It's not your game. It's a town or municipalities or the state's game. So you got to find out what game they're playing and what book they're referring to, that you stay on the same page. Any differences from them, then it's an education process between you and the building department. Okay, now that I said that, okay, so you don't inspect it's kind of an interesting way to put this, but since all your site-built chimneys will fall under the IRC, when it becomes a prefabricated chimneys, where do you go with that? Well, there is some copy and some terminology in the IRC concerning prefabricated chimneys, but they will always come back to a point of explaining to you that you have to use the manufacturer's installation instructions to basically verify that what you've done. So that's like, oh my God, I'll never get through those. There's only about 3 or 4 manufacturers probably within your area, sometimes only one in your area that's going to be the predominant player. Once you know who that one is, then the rest of them can come in accordingly. And as we go through this, I'll explain to you how that you can do that and get that information quickly out in the field. Now with the wonders of the internet, it makes it much easier. So we have information concerning about how prefabricated chimneys are designed and built, and also we have the information concerning what a listing is, so that you need to understand what that is. So that's in there, so you know what that does. Then a documentation process. So when you're in the field, this is the confusing part, and everybody needs to understand this really easily. If here I am in the state of Iowa, and if I'm inspecting my fireplace, if I have a masonry fireplace, then I would be using the IRC. I think I was using 2016. Could be wrong, could have changed, but last I knew it was 2016. So if that is the case, then I would use the 2016 version, and I would do my inspection accordingly. So I'm inspecting chimney to the applications that were designed and built with the code in the state of Iowa for this chimney. But to do the level 1 and level 2 or level 3, then I have to jump over to the NFPA 211, which gives me the scope of what I'm going to be checking at, when I'm going to do the inspection, where I'm going to do the inspection, the circumstances involved in it, the depth of the inspection, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, and the sizing for appliances and fireplace fluids. Those things would be found in the NFPA 211. Okay, so that's where the process of the inspection is in the 211, but I'm inspecting the chimney designed by IRC. All right, does that make sense for you to understand? That's confusing. So because the worst part is if you send in a report to somebody and you say the chimney doesn't comply to NFPA 211 in the state of Iowa, doesn't mean bupkis, because we don't follow NFPA 211 here in the state of Iowa, and a lot of other states don't either. So which means by saying that makes you look like an idiot. So please don't do that. You have to understand that the process you use To inspect the chimney is the levels and the scope is in the 211. But what you're inspecting to is what the state requires as far as the building. Okay? That's what's really super key. That's what you need to understand. So we go on again. I'm looking through here now, documental resources in cases of defects. The next verification process, now that I have a national codes and I have a national process for that I work off of, now the $64 question is I have to come up with the ideal. The ideal, of course, is going to be found in Chapter 10 and Chapter 18 of the IRC if you're doing masonry products. Those books, those chapters extend out to explain to you just exactly how a masonry thimble, or excuse me, a masonry flue is to be set, and the size and its depth and where it's supposed to be and the angle that it's supposed to be built accordingly. That is all built into the Chapter 10. Chapter 18 talks about how to design the interior and how it should be done and the parameters involved in making sure that, here it is folks, here's the golden egg, does the chimney contain the products of combustion? If there's any perforations, cracks, separations, perforations, anything inside the chimney that will allow the condensates of the products of combustion to leave the interior of the chimney and go out, then it becomes a defect. So what I've done is I've explained to you what a defect is. So when I'm working from my comparison from the IRC, they've explained to me what I'm supposed to do. The process of how I do it is during my level 1. And between those two, I come up with a verification process that I have a defect. Okay, so that's all here in the book for you to go through it. And we also mentioned too, and for those of you who are familiar with the chimney fires, cause and effects and evaluations that was done by CSA back in the 90s. The book is still available. There's a tremendous amount of information about crack liners, the Young's modulus, and it goes on, and verification. But the problem of it is it's a great resource for understanding what happens under the chances of a sudden occurrence or an event. With those are terms, that insurance terms that you need to be aware of if you're doing insurance company work. So that book is still available. I do recommend that you read that for further verifications of what goes on. Okay, so talk about verification process. I talk about how I built the book and where it was done. So the next key thing I need to talk to you about is that since we've been doing this for 38 years, there's times basically how people operate their cameras. And it's amazing how we as a company see things come together. We know by the repairs what you did. So it's really pretty phenomenal when you start looking at the forensic evidence that we get. We go, well, it looked like somebody yanked the living daylights out of that thing. Okay, I wonder what happened. And there's always a story. So we've seen things fall off of 35-foot roofs and work okay, and smash cases. We've had other people have run over things. People leave things on their bumpers and they fall off, and the stories go on and on over the years. But the case, the fact is that how you operate the camera is very critical. So two things. There's two real ways that you need to understand. First off, there's crack hunters and there's objective scanners. Now, what do I mean by crack hunting? Well, crack hunting is just exactly what it is. You put the cam in there as quick as you can, find a crack. I had a chimney fire, call the insurance company, we all move on, we sell a liner job, we all move on. Okay? I used to do that in the early days until I learned, and I'll tell you the story. Back in between 83 to 85, back in Pennsylvania. I started my company back in Northeast Pennsylvania. So from 1978 or 79 until 1985, when I came up to Iowa to work for Copperfield, I had a company where we put in 3 or 4 years period of time, put our 223 liners in. So we learned out in the field how to do things when things weren't even available, warranties weren't available. Sometimes in the early days, we couldn't get a liner. We would go to the sheet metal shop and literally crank out the liner, make tees, and put the things together out of 304. Those were the early days. So I've been in this industry long enough to be able to see and do all these type of things. So back to my story about crack hunting. So if I did that process, then I would go and, I'd say, okay, I found the crack. Yep, okay, pull the camera out, and we start the adjuster. Oops, got ahead of myself. From that time period, I used to work with a county mutual insurance company, and probably a good 6 to 8 months out of the year, I would pick the gentleman up at his office. He would get in my van, and I would travel. They would expense me out for the day, and we would drive around looking at damage. Now, back in those days, chimney fires were absolutely rampant. You know, everybody was a wood stove, and then everybody became an expert about wood stoves. And so it became really hard to document. And that's one of the reasons why Chim-Scan became a reality, is because I got tired of that. I didn't know what I was talking about. I'm the guy on top of the chimney. I'm looking here. Anyway, so I began to work on a way to do that. So I would pick this gentleman up. So I got a chance for 2 years of my life to go around with an adjuster and look at all kinds of different claims. 90% of the times we were looking at chimney fire damage. Once in a while we did a tractor fire, or there's this problem someplace else we were in that area. So, you know, we would stop by and I'd watch him do what he did. And I began to learn something is when I went in and just crack hunt, found the crack okay, and he knew he'd start the paperwork. Well, when I got to the job to go do it, I all of a sudden found myself, it was always usually like 80 or 90 miles away from home, that I would come to find out that I didn't do my job. And I found out that I couldn't get the liner down that I supposedly thought was going to fit. And so then I began to realize, you do that once or twice and begin to realize, like, dude, this is really, really expensive. And there's one thing that I've realized that crack hunters have that objective scanners and professionals don't have: graveyards. Graveyards are the parts and pieces that you try to get in that don't work anymore. Okay, you've bent them up, or you got it stuck. Whatever the deal is, you got a graveyard of parts. But what I began to realize is that when I got to the job, I began to start scanning the whole thing. He started asking me, he says, "Well, how come you're scanning it? We've already found the crack." I go, "You're right. I'm scanning it because I'm the guy who's got to line this thing, and I got to find out there's something else." And sure enough, I may find another crack liner someplace else. I could find a hidden breaching, and it changed the dynamics of what I was going to do as far as completing the job. As I went through, I got better and better at the dimensions and stuff, whatever. And in the long and the short of it, folks, I became a professional chimney reliner using the products of the day, either straight stainless steel or flexible stainless steel. I also started working with rock wool, and from rock wool, I would change over to ceramic blanket. Everybody saw what I was doing with ceramic blanket. Next thing you know, Copperfield put it through the listings. Sleepy Hollow was using it, and everybody else all began to use blanket because it was so much easier to work with and stop the vermiculite leakage that was unbelievable, how many chimneys that were leaking out vermiculite. So that's what I would explain to you is I have the personal experience of doing all these things in the early days, and I began to find products and things that were going to make it easier for me to do it. What I began to learn is I no longer crack hunt, and I'm an objective scanner. So that way there I go through, I'd scan it, dimensions, the whole 9 yards. And once I have all that information, then my graveyard went from being this big, huge pile to just down to this little pile. And that was it. And the rest of those were inventory parts, just in case we got the job and I might need a T or a 90 degree or whatever elbow or at that time that we needed. I had those on hand, and I got the job done. Job done, paycheck, we all move on. So that's my story about how I learned the difference between objective scanning and crack hunting. I know a lot of you guys don't, still may continue to crack hunt. That is your decision, but I would really truly advise you that as course time comes down, you go through this book, you start working with the levels of inspection, you'll begin to understand that what you're doing is creating a pathway and also a pattern for what all the things that you're going to do in the future is to lay a foundation. The more I grow your company, the more you grow your company, you'll begin to understand that there's foundational levels. You know, when you're a one truck operator, you might be here, 1 to 2, 1 truck, 2 helpers, or a helper is right over here. Then there's a 2 helper. Then from 2 trucks to 5 trucks, life gets really, really miserable. When you get to the 5 trucks, you begin a different story. And ask anybody else who hits over the $2 or $3 million mark, everything that you learned in the past, it has to be redone over and a new foundation. So what I'm explaining to you is something that you could grow as a $70,000 or $85,000 gross company to several $1 million a year company. You could do working off this format or parts of it that fit in your application. So what I'm telling you is not, oh yeah, it's a kind of neat equivalent. No, this is built on experience, and it's built on the fact that we made a lot of mistakes and we learned how to get rid of those mistakes and just concise it down to a very easy way of inspecting and getting your data. All right, now that I talked to you about the applications as the beginning of it and my verification process and the level 1 IRC, let us begin. And I've talked to you about the crack hunting and your objective scanning that you're going to need to do. Part 2 of this is going to be based on the degree of how the camera views the liner. And we put several different defects that are inside the book. Misaligned liners, horizontal flaking liners, animal intrusion, unlined chimneys. And besides that, on page 10, you'll begin to realize that we gave you the right angle to get the best image quality. There's sometimes in the old days when we only had right angle, well, we got some really great open mortar joints, but we couldn't really see the irregularity of liners because we couldn't see above us. Today, everybody's got cameras, including ourselves, that has the camera looking straight up. That allows you to see if the camera's off, the chimney is offset, or if the liners are not on top of each other and misaligned. All those things can be seen so fast versus in the old days when you kind of had to hunt and guess. That's all happened to make it easier. So we just talked to you about all those different angles that you'll need to do. Now, I want to get to a point that part 3 of this is basically the cause of the defect. Now, I've got your angle, you got your verification, you got an ideal build. Now, how do I deal with what causes this in the process? And you really need to. How's the best way I want to explain this? People will ask you and involved in a claim. In other words, you're at someone's home and you run across some crack liners in the process of all your other examinations and documentation you've done. You've found out that there's no other thing, like why did these liners crack? What I began to understand is especially when I'm working with insurance companies, I'm trying to people understand what I was doing is. And this is the reasons why I created the 4 pathways to defects, is there were times when you would run across crack liners and you found no other evidence. And you put it in the insurance company, well, you don't know what you're talking about, so we'll go get a forensic engineer in to take a look at it, or a structural engineer, and he'll render a decision. He'll go outside, look at the chimney, goes, yep, it looks perpendicular. He'll look at the foundation, he'll look at the varieties around it, see there's no damage that he could visually see, so it must be okay. So they'll go ahead and they'll spend X amount of dollars to have him go do that while you have a repair job that you're wanting to do, and it's been denied. So I learned something from my insurance man, and this lesson helped me out a lot, and I'll pass it on to you and say what caused the defects. So the reasons that we showed on the earlier pages, we have latent defects, you have moisture, you have wear and tear, and you have a sudden occurrence. And the sudden occurrences can be anywhere between, out here in Iowa, it could be a derecho to chimney fire, lightning strike, tree falls on the chimney, variety of things. Those are our events. They're like named perils within the policy. That's one way. But wear and tear and moisture issues and latent defects are not an insurable loss. They're basically considered in that wear and tear application. So what I would have to do if I ran across a chimney that had a crack in it and I didn't have any puffed up creosote, I don't have a fireman's report, I don't have anything else that like a neighbor saw, flames shooting out of the top of the chimney, I don't have any physical evidence what this caused this, then I would do is I kind of reverse engineer it or go through the process of deduction. So how I would do the report is very simple. If I saw the crack that was there, I said, notice on liner 3 and 4 the liners are cracked. So the next question I want to ask myself as well, is there any other physical evidence that it's happened? I have none. Now the next thing I begin to do is I would have to ask myself, were the liners put in properly? Are they sitting on top of each other rightly, or are they bent and there's open mortar joints? That's one thing. The next thing I would look at is I'd go outside, I would look at the chimney. Do I see any discoloration on the outside of the chimney? Does the liner look straight? Or does the chimney look straight? Does it have any corbel to it? Does that look proper? Does that look correct? Is there anything that's degrading away from the process of the chimney being a structurally sound application? I would look at the ground. I'd look around the sides. Is there any cracking in the foundation? Is there anything on the sides, where the chimney is now split and has moved away from the house? Is there anything like that? If I can't find any of that, then I'm going to have to say that there's nothing in the wear and tear or latent defect of the chimney that would cause this thing to move. Then, if I don't see any other changes in color or leakages of some kind within there, then the next question is, well, I don't have a moisture issue. Does it have a crown on top or a wash, and the wash is shedding water away from it? So that takes moisture away. So I've taken care of latent defect, taken care of wear and tear, and I've taken care of moisture issues. What's left? Sudden occurrence. And by the process of eliminating different things, I was able to prove to the insurer, I'm sure they prove my point that of all the things that I looked at, that this here is most likely was caused from a sudden event or sudden occurrence. Most of the times, doing your diligence, insurance companies would see with your photographs and with your reports, they begin to realize there's no sense sending a forensic engineer out there or a structural engineer. He went through and looked at all the variety of things that they would look at, saved us $800 or $900, and but in that category, but then we still have a claim that we have ahead of us. So with that said, it's in this book. It's on page 12. I begin to talk about it. Due diligence is very, very critical and important, especially when you're trying to work with third parties, HOAs, condominium associations, insurance companies, realtors, whatever the person is that's looking for information. Being able to understand what things aren't and what things are helps you deduce or deduct down to what could be a real good possibility. We talk about the completion on Chapter 4, knowing the causes and effects of things, put your evidence together in an easy access and a readable way. The other thing involved with this too is we looked at Part 5 we talk about in this book about access points for scanning. Each different installation has a different variety of different access points. We go through that with each one of you. As we go through the modules, we'll talk to you where the access points are, where the easiest ones to get to. If you're a home inspector, obviously there's things you cannot move or take apart. So this is a situation where we'll give you another access point to go to help you get to it. In some applications, you're not going to get it without moving something. So you're probably going to have to get help from someone else to help you through it. So as we get through with this, we want to get started with the preparations are getting ready to do a scan. And when we walk in the room, I guess with all your documentation process, when you're doing your level 1s and level 2s, it's really, really critical that you get your photography in the right place and prep your workplace accordingly. So the first thing I need to really discuss with you, when you do get to the home, if you go to the door front, let yourself know that you're there, customer lets you in, okay, fine. And you may want to set and put your tarps up. But the first thing you need to do before you drop your tarps down is to take a picture of the room. Now, I want you to understand something. I want the room, okay? Here, let me just let me move over in front of the camera here. I don't want what's behind me, okay? I don't want to see this thing up close, all right? I want to see this. I want to see everything within the room. All right. The reason I put the paper across there was such a shadow, such a glare coming off of it, I had to put white paper over top of it. But that's the thing. I want to be able to see this room as much as I got a camera that turns and moves. I want to be able to see this room as much as I can, so you have an idea what you're walking into. That's a pizza oven behind you. So that's what I'm talking about, the room. So you will need to see the room. So take a picture far away. That way, show where the couch is, where the furniture, the coffee tables are, anything of that nature. Make sure that you have it photographed. Once that's done, drop Costco down, and you start to begin the process of protecting the area that you're going to be working from. Even if it's just old sooty oil furnace downstairs, same thing, or boiler. Make sure take several photographs of it before you start. Okay, that's real key. So once you have that, now you can do your protection that you need to do, put your tarps down, and get ready to, if you're going to sweep, or if you just do the inspection only, you're using the camera, you're set to go. But part of that also the process too, we talk about it with health and safety for each one we go through it, but gloves are required, goggles are required, respirators required, and if you want to wear a soot suit of some type, that would be really, really recommended to do that. These are things to help you keep yourself clean, keep the soot off of you, and at the same time also protecting the home from any soot that may fall off in the process, or something fall in as you open up a damper. Those are key to keeping those things together. And also, if you're working on masonry, especially masonry fireplaces, and if they don't have a cap on top, you may run across critters. So be aware of critters. We talk extensively about critters here, and we also put a QR code for you on page 16 explaining to you the route concerning chimney swifts. They're a migratory bird, and I read here for you, the Department of Natural Resources enforces the disturbance of chimney swifts with a hefty fine, which can be $15,000 each per egg, nest, and bird in part or whole. So that's right from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. So this is a serious thing. So if you do run across in the springtime and you see us, please be sure to look for chimney sweep nests before you just drop a brush or rotary cleaner, whatever. Make sure that is not. I have known, and I do know a person who was tagged with a $36,000 fine. So please be very wary out there. If you find it, just take the photographs, the imagery that you can, say I'll have to come back sometime later to either sweep the chimney or do my full inspection because I can't do it because the nest is in its way. So it's a great way if you're going up from the bottom with the top mounted camera, looking up there. If you see it, okay, just pull the camera back down, call it a day, and say we're going to have to do this at another time. So once you get through, if you do the QR code, if you're really in areas where the migratory patterns are, you need to be very, know that March and April is when they're coming in, and then October, November is when the last migrations go out. Gives you a time and a window in your area when they're gone. So find that out first. Okay, then you're going to be checking out on page 17. I have a thing set up for you as far as checking your camera equipment, getting it set up. A lot of the new equipment now is designed to work off of DeWalt, Milwaukee, Rigid, Makita, and Bosch. We have the batteries, holders, and applications for those. Also, the things that will be necessary for setting up for your stabilizers. We put the stabilizers now on the cameras for you because lots of times people just didn't bother putting them in. It was like bang, 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 bang. That doesn't really do much, and it slows the scan down incredibly. So that's why we made sure that we covered that topic. Also, the parts and stuff involved with the camera, we go through those, the reelers, the considerations, and also taking pictures with the videos with the camera and the remote. I'm on page 21, explaining to you and going through the different aspects that's involved with the remote. So you have that, and also the retrieval of all the information on the SD card. So we have that set there for you. And also, the neat thing we did too is we also, on page 22, we talked about keyboards. Keyboards are probably going to become more important in years come by. And I like the way I keep it on a keyboard. Touch is nice, but you remember I'm the guy who ran his thumb through a table saw. So my thumb does not work. I'm defective, and I can't do as quickly as some of you guys type using your phones. So I like a keyboard, and with the keyboard, I can put all my information on the photo. I can tell who the customer is, his address if I want to. I can put, information on that photo, and as soon as I hit the record button, it's on there. It's on, so it's done. I don't have to go back and tell them this, that, or whatever. I can say copy, see photo, set photo 1, see photo 2, see photo 3 in my copy, and you have to look at the photo, and all the information's on the photo. Done. So in the future, especially if you're doing HOAs, you're doing large jobs, or you're doing condos, whatever, where you've got like 50 to 100 or 200 or 300 units to look at, this is the most valuable tool in the market. The $300 that it costs is nothing compared to the speed that you'll be able to do your work. Will it slow you down during the day a little bit? Yeah, you probably maybe do 1 or 2 fireplaces less a day. But when you come home at nighttime, you're done. I mean, all the information on unit this, unit that, unit section, this, that, whatever. It's all on the photo. You just have to put it on. So it's while you're pushing the camera up, somebody can either do the keyboard work, or you can do it as you're doing it yourself. Just go so far, just go one finger and do it. I have a small keyboard set up for it inside the units if you want to use that. And also for myself, if I've got a lot of work to do, I've got a big old keyboard, old 109 key, one that's about this big, and it's big, got yellow keys across it. It's easy for me to see it. I'm an old fart now, so it makes it easier for me to I can type much faster on it. And they're like 25 or 30 bucks for those, and I just keep it in the bag if I need it. So that's something small and petite, or you want something big and hammer away on it. It's got it's a USB output, so you're good to go. Break it, go down the store and go buy a new one. So I mean, it's that simple. Okay, so we talk about the next pages. We're on page 23. We're talking about scanning equipment, modules, and one of those about the difference of the cameras. But we kind of ran you through, if you see on 23, what pattern. If you're using just an Enviro camera, like it's photographed on that page, of course, you're turning the camera left, you're turning the camera right. So we gave you the patterns on the barber pole effect. When you get to the joint, you do 360 degree on the joint, and then you reverse the direction and go up. That was the old school way that we did it. If you have just an Enviro and that's all you have, this is the way that you would scan it, so that in other words, you get all the liner that you're doing it. The same thing if you're going to do this, and the same thing in a prefabricated chimney. Again, you barber pole up. There's 2 ways. Most of the times I barber pole up. When I come to the joint, I do a 360 to make sure it's locked, and do the same thing, reverse the direction as I go up the chimney. In some cases, I may follow the seam all the way down to make sure that it's locked as I go through. That's with the Enviro cameras. When you start using the lighthouse cameras and start using the combos where you can look straight up, this goes so much faster. You can go like 5 times faster doing the scan So that's why we had the cameras, that's why we had the rotation stuff, that's why we had the tilts and stuff to it. When all those things are in play, your scan time just dramatically drops, and like 10 times more information comes across the screen. So that's the key thing. That's why all the manufacturers of other cameras are all doing tilt camera heads, because of that reason. You can, while you're there at the job, you can get in more information in less time. All right. If you're doing it just with the Enviro camera, what we call camera on a stick, and working back and forth, then it's slowed up. But you know, it's what you have, but it's a whole lot better than not using anything at all. Trust me. So we put that information in there for you to do that. We also showed you on the pages the differences when you're into smoke shelves, and how you can use the utility cameras, the smaller cameras for showing that. That information is there on that page for you. The other thing we talk about, knowing that someone really hasn't really picked up on it, I really don't know why, because when I've gone out to California to friends and I've gone out and done some scan work with them, man, there wasn't a time that we didn't drill a hole in the top of the termination on the top, and we just drill an 1.5 or 2 inch hole, pop it out, and drop the camera down inside the chase. Amazing the stuff you find. You know, if you run across the fire stops, and you got a really good chance that everybody did everything right. A lot of times there aren't any fire stops, you just end up going all the way down to the unit. If it's a ranch house, it's not a big deal, because you go right down to the unit, you'd see what's on top of it. Is the gas line hooked properly? Is the outside air hooked up? Did they follow 2-inch clearances? You know, and all the information most of the time is on the pipe, so you can read the pipe. So all that information is there, is on page 25 for you, so you can see that and see how that all worked out. Then we talked to you about using the lighthouse and the continuous rotation and 90-degree tilt. That's built in there, so you can see how we do that and what we do, and all the cameras and stuff are involved with it. So then we get down to the point of, like, on page 28, this is something that is really, really super critical that we need to be aware of. These were taken from and given to me from Steve Scally up in New Hampshire. This is the reason why mortar joints and scanning is so critical, because when you don't put the chimney together properly in the first place, this is what you see. These are open mortar joints, condensation is running down, concrete's put in places to hold things together, and in the essence, the chimney is just leaking like a sieve. So it's not really containing the product combustion. So take yourself back to the verification process again, what I'm talking to you about. I said verifying that all the products of combustion shall be, not shoulda, coulda, woulda, shall be contained in the chimney. This is the situation here, along with millions of others that are out there that are in this same condition. So that's why I get so bugabooed about open mortar joints, because of the process of temperature changes. Hot gases come out, they go up inside the chimney, they're at one temperature, the next thing you know, they start dropping temperature rapidly. And that open mortar joint, they condense on the side, they run on the sides, and then the joints there, and they go on the outside of it. So we're going to see more of this at the top, maybe than you will at the bottom, depending on, again, where the chimney is in the house. An exterior chimney is going to be worse. It's going to be through all of them. An interior chimney, chances are it's going to be closer to the top where you'll see this. But the key factor along with this is that you need to remember this is the reason why you're doing what you're doing, is to make sure that the chimney can contain the products of combustion. And if it's not, then it's time to reconfigure how you do this. We set this book up in such a way that for years people were selling from fear. There's no reason anymore. I have enough evidence in this book, and evidence that's been seen by other people out in the field using the same different techniques that we've kind of put here in the book, that you stop talking defensively and you can start talking to people within reason and sense. It's just, it's an understanding about what's happened. So if I can show you the defect, then I can tell you why the defect happened, then I can tell you what's going to have the consequences if you keep using it this way. A customer will then get a better understanding of how important the defect is. As a sales technique, I don't sell product, okay? Nobody buys gasoline because they think it's good to drink. They drink it because they buy it. They don't drink it. They buy it because they want to travel. They want to use their car. People don't buy medicine because they want to buy medicine. They buy medicine so they can feel better. This is the same thing here. Don't sell the product, sell the defect. Once you sell the defect, then it's not, well, I don't know if I need it or not. No, it's a situation of not if you need it, because you've just shown it to them. You've just proved the point of what it was. All that's left to do is, when can you do it? So So even though I'm going through all this thing, it's like, oh, this is crazy. This is all too much information. Now they're going to get lost. No, you can concise this thing down to a presentation within 2 and 3 minutes, and then basically shut up, listen, and look at them and see if they're still engaged. And if they're still engaged, I'm going to say, well, what can we do next? Well, I would go for this one or this one or this one first. As a rule, I always went for water problems first. So if I have a water and moisture problem inside the moisture problem from exterior, not condensate, exterior situations, then the first thing I want to do is I want to seal up the chimney to stop the water from coming in. The next thing I want to do is to make the chimney in a way that it contains all the products of combustion. But it's a step-by-step process to get it. Sometimes it's the whole thing, and you get the job done. Sometimes this year you're going to go for water. Next year you're going for the joints. However, the responses from the customer and what his income and budget is for these things allows me to keep continuing on. So sometimes I didn't get everything all at once, but over a 5-year period of time, everything is done. So my goal for this industry is not that I got the liner job. My goal is to bring the chimney up to operational ready. That's the goal. If I wanted a 30,000 foot view, folks, that's where it's at. I want to be able to make chimneys in the United States operational ready. That means the chimney, the liner, has to contain the products of combustion and vent the things outside the house. That's what it's for. So if it's not, then we're all wasting our time, or we've spent money where we don't need to, which is foolish. So I think I hope I've kind of fixed up things here. I'm getting close to the point where we're doing the last module here. We're getting ready to do the first module, and for me to finish up this section here. But so that's why I'm just going to go over clearly what I have here on the page. On page 29, you'll notice that there's the 5 principles needed for proper scans. We talk about the clarity, so moving the camera too fast, whatever, it doesn't produce good image quality. So take your time when you're taking images. Illumination is also critical. We work very hard to get the lighting that we have, the color of the light, and also the degree of light dramatically changes in how the camera is going to work. The other thing that's going to go with this is going to be your position, the stability, and your delivery. All the design, and you can easily read them on the pages to show you what's going on. So that's the ending that we have set up for the book. Now we're going to go into the modules, each one of the modules. So I'm looking over my board over top of me here and just making sure that I got things set up. So I had changes needed for change up. We got that. Reference book. I got a big whiteboard here, so I'm watching off of it. And let's see. Oh, yeah, one other thing I just noticed on the board we need to think about. We talk about keeping the products of combustion the main thing, keeping it inside there. One of the critical things that I've noticed about efficiency, the more efficient appliances that I buy, the more pain in the neck they are. Because, case in point, I have, close to 10,000 square feet here, and I've got wood boiler, and I've got floor heat, and I've got split systems inside there, and I got a furnace here. So I've got all different styles and kinds of appliances here. And one thing that I begin to realize is that even though I have plastic PVC pipe coming out venting these 90 plus appliances, I have condensate issues from time to time, and birds, for God's sakes, get in there. Birds. I had to take the whole thing apart to get the bird nest out. But the other thing too, with the split systems, I've also realized too that every month or so I have to go out with an air compressor and blow off the coils, because pollen or something like just could be just enough of a thin layer on there that dramatically slows the airflow going over top of it, then it ices up the condenser. So it's like, okay. So that's the same thing here. My point being is that's the same thing here with chimneys. You need to understand that the more efficient the appliance is, the more balanced the system has to be, which means it has to contain the products of combustion. It has to be warm. And if they do that, then maybe the problems we have toward more pollution, or what people see as pollution, can be reduced dramatically. So with that, I just wanted to kind of run that through you, that I'm not doing this for a panacea, or I'm doing this because I concisely put all your information together in such a manner that you can get through the inspection process and do it completely in a timely fashion. So, excuse me. So that's pretty much what I have for you here. After this, we're going to switch over and we're going to go over to the modules, and we'll start from there. So thanks for watching this first part, and we'll see you again later. Take care. Okay, as we continue in the manual, we're going to get to the beginning of the mods. This one here, the first one, is going to be masonry fireplaces and chimneys, so it's going to be just a standard masonry fireplace. So we go through, the first thing that we like to try to do, as you'll see on the page 30, we put a diagram on it. We also put terminology on it, so if I say something or whatever, it will link back to the diagram on page 30. So this is really critical, so that way we can keep people all on the same page. So if you're not familiar with fireplace terms, this is a great way to learn them. If you are, basically as a review and to keep everybody in a uniform platform. If you're a home inspector or others inspectors, this is great as background information for you as we continue on the journey. We also put in stars to show you the access points that are involved in getting into one. The stars will tell you where you can put the camera. And in this case here with masonry fireplaces, your best bet is always at the front. Whether there's glass doors, there's screens, or nothing at all. This is usually your most easiest route to get through. And as you plan to continue down, we also show you those access points a little bit closer, and we put the terminology down in the area where we're going to start to talk. We usually start at the bottom of something and work our way back up. So this is the reasons why we do this. Even with the checklist, we do the same way too in collecting your basic information that you have down on page 31. We also do them with 31 and to 32. These are taken right from the Flue and Hearth notes. They are here for you to use. You like to use them, great. We have forms for it. If it's something that you can add to your existing situation, Yahoo Buckaroo, that's what they're for. So we added those in there so the templates that you may or may not need, or I never thought about checking that off, can also be done. I have learned it over the years, the amount of terminology, the amount of parts that are involved in fireplaces and chimneys, is that I have to go through a checklist anymore, because if I think about it in terms of, what latent defect could have been a cause, or what moisture issues could have been thing, or wear and tear, or whether it's a sudden occurrence, I have to keep all that stuff together in my head. And if I start looking at the checklist as I go through it, I begin to realize, hey, there is a pattern here, and this box was checked when that box was checked. This is leading me to a point where we may have a moisture issue or condensate issue or something of that nature. It just keeps it alive in your mind as you're working through it. So, and also too on page 32, we also have the times when you are to do a level 2, which is of course is going to be doing your relines, real estate transactions, your sudden occurrence, chimney fires, natural disasters type things, and change of appliance for different fuels or BTUs. So any of those times happen, a level 2 is required that you do. Most of the times that you're going through this here, you probably will not ever get to a point of doing level 3s. Some of you will be doing them, but as a majority of it, it's going to be level 1 and level 2s. And that reason being is the fact that level 3s usually require that there's a historical situation involving deconstruction of something, or it's a real estate like a flipping type application. You need to know more information about how things are going to be set up. Those will be there. Subrogations, if there is a loss, going through what's left to see if something was a cause, to go to a cause and origin report. So that's really when you will begin to see your level 3s. So in most cases, I've done maybe 3 or 4 level 3s in my entire life. So the rest of the time, they just mostly be level 2s. So as I said that, I just wanted as a reminder here for you, so you have those. And again, we have the terminology beginning. So beginning your process, we kind of broke this down in steps. As you see, as we laid out the summary forms, we like to do everything in a step, because fireplaces just aren't fireplaces. They are mortar structures that are done in sections, because you have your base, which in most cases may or may not have a smoke or an ash pit. Then you have your hearth base itself, and then the firebox is basically created, and your shelf and your smoke chamber, from the smoke chamber up to the chimney, and a chimney to the flashing to the top of the chimney or the exterior part of it, and then whether you have a crown, a washer splay, and if you have a cap. So all those play into it. So we list it that way, so that you understand that there are steps to it, and every time there's a transition, there's always a chance for a mistake. All right, let me say that again. Every time there's a transition, there's always a chance for a mistake or a wear point. So That's the reasons why we do what we do. We're going through bisection that way that we can thoroughly cover an area, and hopefully we've answered all your questions. Starting on the page, first thing I would tell you to do is you take a photograph of the doors, if it has doors on it. And I usually do those in such a manner that I open them part way to show you that they do operate, and they open and close in the photograph. The same thing with screens, I just partially open them and note it as they close. So I do that. I want you to do photographs here showing you the different styles of things you may run across that are out there in the field. Grates and ash, yeah, you will. Most of the times, if you're doing a straight scan, like for a real estate transaction, you should be able to get in and out without messing with anything. You just open the doors, open the damper, and you're in. Other times, the damper may be in your, your grate might be in your way, and because of the way the angle that it is, and the size and the angle, might require that you take the grate out. If you do anything with it, either push the ashes over slowly to get them out of your way, and if you have to, take the grate, lift it up. I mean, sometimes you can lift them up and put them on the back wall and keep them in the same area, or other times it's just easy to just take them out and just put them on the tarp in front of you. So those are things that you might want to consider as you're going through that. Ash pits, this is becoming more of a big thing anymore. In the old days, we never even gave it a thought, but now we've seen that there's been structure fires and things litigated back to the point that this was the point where things happen, where builders are putting plywood underlayment underneath the fireplace and then putting the fire brick and stuff on top. Not a good idea, and usually within time will either overheat or catch on fire. So bottom line is, it's something that we need to check out. And with the unit, you can just take the small head, and in some situations I just take the lighthouse if you want to, and just put the whole thing down inside the firebox and spin the camera around, take a look inside the ash pit, and you're set to go. So we did that for you. The other thing that you will probably at sometimes start to work with, you'll have gas logs. They get a little bit tricky from some time to time, so you need to take some extra precautions while you're doing that. What you'd like to do, obviously, if there's a pilot light with it, you're going to want to turn the pilot light off. And, actually, first off, I apologize. The first thing I want to do is make sure the logs work. Turn the logs on just for a little bit to make sure they ignite and everything is working. If they do, shut it off. Just let it cool for a couple minutes while you get yourself set up, and then continue on with the scan. But all things, before you do the scan, take a picture of the log set before you start. Should you bring the camera down and hit a log and knock it out of place, this way here you can look at your photograph as a reference and put the log back where it needs to go. So, also you'll run across different styles of burn media that are in there, making sure you find that there's a damper clamp on it. All those will make a difference on its operational capabilities. We're going to go through this next section, and I'm kind of moving along pretty quick, but you can stop and start me at any time you want to, which is a really cool part about doing a video. Now we're going to go through the different styles and types of damper handles that you'll run across, and the most prevalent one that you'll probably find is something which is called a poker or ratchet style, where you can, in the end of the ring of it, has a hole that you can put the poker and push it up if you want to, or bring it back down, or use your hand, whichever way you'd like to do with it. But that's probably the most prominent handle that you'll see out there in the market. It's a lift up and push forward, and same thing, lift up and drop back down in place. That's usually common. You will run across in some places in the United States what is called a rotary damper. Same thing with that. Clockwise, I believe, opens it up, and counterclockwise closes it. And if that doesn't happen, take the thing apart and turn it the other way, and it will work. But that's okay. Just leave it the way it was put in, and that way they rotary and open and close the damper accordingly. Double pivots, they're more common. Like it's like a ratchet, but only has a double pivot point to it, so you lift it up and then pull, and it also opens the damper to its side. The other thing I say you'll run across will be logging. The S&Os are basically those that are used on the front of double-sided fireplaces or large fireplaces, where they'll have a center pivot, and it's usually a steel dome with the damper inside the dome. And it'll have an S and an O for open and shut. So you'll probably run across those from time to time. Then there's the handles and stuff that you'll find on your heat form style fireplaces. They're a little bit different. They're usually just an open, close, open type application. Yeah. And so those things you will find also, and they're under tension a little bit, so when you go to move, they're a little bit stiff, so they take a little bit to work, but they're kind of designed that way so they stay locked open or locked closed. The other ones that you run will be opened, or basically where you don't have a damper any longer at the base or at the bottom of the fireplace, but this will be on top of your top mounted dampers. We put some examples in here for you, whether spring loaded as a coil spring, or either weighted, or in a situation you also have those that pop up also. So there we also included that and information about how to work with those too. And realizing when you are scanning, be very careful when you're putting the camera up inside there that you not catch the cable and get stuck on the camera. So most of the times I found it's just best if you just leave it locked in place, get your stabilizers up around it, and usually you're free from the cable, and you should be fine. But if you see any, like you can't, something's not moving or whatever as your scan goes on, watch the side handle and make sure that it did not come undone. So again, when you open the dampers, you're going to see yourself up into the smoke chamber itself. We also too want to recommend for those of you that are home inspectors, if you do open this up and there's more than 1/8 of an inch of soot, you can take the fireplace poker if you like to, or take the end of the rod, whatever, and just go up there and just scratch it. If you see there's more than 1/8 of an inch, then you're at that place where you might be able to scan it okay, and chances are you might not. Most open fireplaces, if they're used, the first third of the chimney is where most of the creosote's going to be, which is excuse me, not creosote, but soot, and some creosote depending on the situation. So it's important that you check to see if the rest of the chimney is clear. You might want to waive whether or not you want to have it swept. But if you're looking at the whole total details inside the smoke chamber, that area that needs to be swept out, or then I would suggest having it swept before you continue on. All right. So that's kind of the game that we kind of work at as far as sweeping a chimney. If there's more than 1/8 of an inch, it's time for it to be swept. You know, if there's any glazing and that appears there, that's another story that probably will require that the chimney be swept out before you continue on with the scan. So that's something you need to be understand. As we do these, almost like I said, like 99% of the times I do the scans from the bottom of the fireplace and work my way up. If I'm working with the heat form with a lot of tubes, in most cases here on the eastern side of the United States, I'm finding that there's usually just 3 tube applications, but you will run across some other units that have multiple tubing, which will not allow anything to get up there. In many cases, sweeps in these areas here have to sweep from the top and put a clean out door on the back side of the smoke chamber so they can get remove the debris that's back there. So it's real critical that you kind of understand your area too. And that of course will be that you'll be doing access from the rooftop only. It does happen, they are out there, but they're not as prevalent on the East Coast as I've heard. There's more out in the West Coast. You'll see those. Checking out, also scanning the smoke chamber and the flue. You can do it this way. In other cases, you just use the standard Chim-Scan lighthouse. As the camera comes up through, you take the camera, go ahead and you can scan, just turn it 360 inside the chamber area. It gives you an idea what you're walking into. You'd like to see it parged. Chances are very high that you will not see it parged, so you have to take your time and look to see for open gaps, brick that's missing, or mortar between the brick that's missing, 3-core brick, which is very common, or something with allowing openings, and also keep an eye out for any combustible material you may or may not see. So it's a critical area that you take your time looking in that area. We also send you some information, from the flue and hearth notes, a checklist to help you go through it. Go through that, and in some cases, like I say, on page 39, I personally found that one myself. And then at smoke chamber, the guy had a really nasty chimney. It was moisture had just really tore this thing apart, and I was kind of just debating whether I should say, yeah, it's okay to do. Maybe a fire would be good to help dry it out. But as time went on, we just happened to open up a vent on the side of the heat form, and sure enough, there's a 2x4 right up next to the form. So it's like, hey, okay, well, so much for that. Let's take this thing apart and get it out of here. So I do as much as I can to find as much information before I make a recommendation on what you should and shouldn't do, especially on fireplaces that have not been used for some time. Okay, you see the camera coming up through. I usually just pick a side away from the handle and I put the camera up through it. We also did too is we kind of give you a reference point of where to work from. These are some photos that you would see. On the left side, on page 40, you'll notice that there's a piece of a blue line going through that, and that's a piece of plywood. This here is what a smoke chamber on a heat form would look like after time of corrosion. I was able to get this from in mid Missouri. grabbed it and then said I want it. The guy looked at me, "You sure you want this?" I said, "Yeah, I need it for the school." And so we were able to get it from him. We brought it up, we put it in the classroom. And that is what it looks like. So when you're doing the scans for smoke chamber areas, be very particular and looking in that area, making sure they're swept and cleaned out. So to give you a reference, we also put you to the right side of the photograph, and that's what they look like when they're new. You can see the hinge at the bottom, and you can see the back wall coming up, and that's what they're supposed to look like. Okay, so left and right, as you can see, we had this put in our chase, and put a insert into it and have a liner to it, but on the back side, this is just to show you that they are worn out. And remember, if there's tubes going through it and there's an opening here, air can come around through and possibly go through the tubes and inject smoke in the room. So that's why it's so super critical to make sure that this thing is sealed off. On the other side of it, basically I have two left and rights. These are both at the lab, so I just shot them. On the left side, this is your usual smoke chamber or smoke shelf application where debris is left on the smoke shelf and it's not cleaned off. And this one over here on the right side is just to show you what you may run across and what you hope you don't see. We built this and debuggered it up as much as we could just to give you an idea of what you may or may run across. The bricks and stuff are stuck in there. As you can see, the 3 core holes and stuff are here on the sides. It's the same continuation, and the liner's partially on it, and it's not being supported the way it should be. So these will just give you some ideas of some of the things you see. If you see any of these two things, note them, okay? That's the most important part about it. Again, we're talking about smoke shelf areas. You work with it. Also using the little camera. Lots of times I use the little Enviro camera from either on top of the unit, or sometimes I just take it off and I will use it if I have to do a lot of scan work, or I think there's an indication there's a problem on the shelf. I'll take the camera off or put it on gooseneck and go through and thoroughly check for things. So this gives you some ideas of what you can do with the gooseneck and the Enviro camera. Okay, so here's the next part, is dealing with the transition from chamber to liner. If there's a place that masons goof up, it's here. It just seems unbelievable how bad this can get, but it really gets weird. So I try to recreate this. These are taken from the lab that we recreated for you to show you. I have found rebar. I have found liners pushed over to one side. They're not supported. They're supposed to be supported on all 4 sides. It's supposed to be a nice smooth transition going into the chimney proper itself. A lot of cases that doesn't happen, so it has to be noted, and so that you can understand that these issues, you can see if this thing did work. First off, it burned down immediately because there's plywood behind it, but it also indicates that there's smoke areas in here where smoke can get into, and basically it's a process of, am I keeping the products of combustion inside the chamber, or in chamber and into the chimney itself, or am I distributing them elsewhere where they're not intended? And that's really what it comes down to scanning. Am I keeping it contained, or am I allowing it to just disperse out inside the chimney structure? So yeah, it's all brick. Where it's going to go? No, there's other chemicals, there's other products, there's condensates, there's other things involved with it that brick and regular mortar are not intended to do. They don't hold them well. They rot out. They fall apart. That's why it's so critical they get inside the cement or the vitreous clay liner, because the clay liner can absorb it and can handle those products of combustion much, much better than the way brick and mortar does. That's why unlined chimneys become a real problem. Okay, so to show you these here, and also make sure looking out for animals and things and strange things that we found, we put them up there for you to take a look at. Again, look on the right side on page 4, T2, you can see that the liner's not supported. It's off on one side. Rebar, how long is the rebar going to last? It's going to rust and it's going to fall through. The way the liners are on it could have bent and cracked in 10 years. That's a real possibility. Okay, if you have stainless steel and you see it inside, that's where the chimney has been relined. Again, make sure that the area under where the liner is to go through, whether it has a support plate, which is most recommended, or whether or not the liner comes down and it is filled with ceramic blanket and sealed off with some type of refractory mortar on the base of it, would be ideal. And then of course, you'll have to go up on top and check out the support mechanism to be sure that that's still in place. Okay, dokes. So you're scanning. Again, you're going to be looking for if it's lined, if the liner size is properly is done correctly, if there's any offsets, and putting the camera in through and starting out, we're looking straight up. You'll be able to see a lot of stuff really, really fast of defects that are going on inside the chimney. So, and then I do my detail work using the lighthouse. So, what to look for? So this is the things we thought we would go through and explain to you what you would see. And the first part of it would be cobwebs. If you're not sweeping the chimney, or the chimney's in a place that you still can scan it and there's not that much debris or soot in it, then by all means go ahead and do it. But unfortunately, the biggest problem that happens with unused chimneys is they get full of cobwebs. And getting them on the camera, it becomes cumbersome, especially on the top camera. You can't see it, there's lines across it. So we have found that the easiest thing is to use a Webster brush. And this brush here just goes up there, just pop it up and spin it around a little bit, and you take the cobwebs out of your way. So when you do the scan, you can actually do a scan instead of trying to get past the cobwebs. So it's a lot easier just to use the Webster brush. Build up again, we're talking here with soot build up. We'll just show you what the liner should look like before you start. If there's any more than that, then it's an issue you should look into as far as sweeping. We're showing you a little bit of glazed creosote, which you'll see on the side of the chimneys. This is very indicative of what you're going to find with those folks who are working with firewood that is not as less desirable, or that needs some time to cure out, and the moisture coming out of the wood was collecting inside it. And this is the beginnings of what it would look like. This is where it's drying out on the top of the page. In the center of the page here, you'll see that it's this totally glazed over, and it's shiny. And there's many times when I'm scanning, I will literally see the light bar on the camera, and you can see it because it's glazing right back as if it was a piece of clear stainless steel. The same thing here. This stuff here is tacky. It is covering the chimney, so the chance of you actually completing a scan and finding out or seeing the defects that are within it is really pretty remote. And this is a candidate to have it PCR'd or something, and to get it out of there so you can look at the chimney properly. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so then we're going from the glazed creosote to light glaze. There's times when you have chimneys that are going to be just lightly glazed over, but the detail behind the liner can be seen, as you see on the right side of the photograph. So those are situations that I would just go ahead and continue my scan work without any problems. If you should see something like this on the bottom of page 44, where it's all puffed up, this is exactly what, if you look like up here, where you see this tarry, glazy looking creosote, well, that's what it looks like when it's been put on fire and it's been puffed up, and that's what we call puffy creosote. This again, probably if you're a home inspector or forensic engineer that don't have the tooling that's necessary for sweeping out a chimney, it's to hire a certified sweep in your area and have them come out and clean that out for you. So yeah, that's the things that you may encounter while you're inside the fireplace itself. You might see some chunks and things that are in there. Moisture and condensation with fireplace is mostly going to be caused because of either crown issues or splay or wash areas that's opened up, allowing moisture to come down. There could be other situations too, that the fireplace is on the exterior wall and it's used in low times where there's enough moisture that's collected with it and finally bleeds through, and you'll usually see this as efflorescence on the outside of the chimney. The white chalkiness that you see is efflorescence. In other words, the minerals from within the brickwork itself has been pulled through, and the water's dropped it off very conveniently on the outside to let you know that, hey, I was wet at one time. So that's what this is for, so to let you know that. If you do run across something that's also been lined, this is something else too that you need to be aware of. If you see anything weird when you're scanning, if you're using a combo camera, you can see in front of you as you go up the chimney. If you start to see buckling or something moved or something it's indented, get as close as you can to it to get a photograph or an image of what it looks like, and then stop. Because in some situations like this here, this was taken from the top down, someone who put the liner in it stretched it too hard, too fast, and this is what they did. They ripped it apart. So you do not want your camera stuck in this. So if you see anything like this or anything where the line is popped across, finally find and document the point at which you can, and then go ahead and pull your camera back out, because you could get yourself stuck in it and you can't get it out, so without destroying everything in the process. So prevent that from happening. Try not to walk in it if at all possible. Other things too is if you're looking at the bottom of the chimney, at the base of it, again, look at the cleanout port to see if there's anything weird or shouldn't be there, as an AKA combustible material, or somebody hiding something in there, or something that may burn. It's not a really good place to put them in there. So again, I want to go back through just to reiterate, when you are looking at joints, this is kind of like a refresher because we did it before, or maybe I didn't. But anyway, if the photo you look on the right on page 46 on the bottom right there, that's what you're looking for. That's the ideal. That our two liners placed together. We cut the fourth side out so you can see into it, and you can notice in how the joint is very smooth, it's very small, and it's sealed. That's what we're looking for. There's your ideal. So put that mental picture in your brain when you start looking at chimneys and start to see the amount of chimneys that have, misaligned liners and open mortar joints that prevail throughout most of the structure. This is what you're working for, and these are the places within the code book. If you're looking for extra wording, you can grab it from the code book and use this as your example for your verification. We also put in here for you too to get an opportunity to take a look at, we talk to you about open mortar joints all the time, and oh, that's not that big a deal. Well, it is a big deal. These were taken from a chimney out in Wisconsin that the contractor, chimney sweep, was able to pull the liners out as they were destructing the chimney, taking it apart and rebuilding it, and this is what you have. So you can see this thing was used on a wood stove, and in many applications the condensate, the joints were poor, water was coming out, and condensate and soot and mixing together, creating all these stains and running down the chimney. And for the most part, as you can see by the soot on the bottom of the page, just how bad these things had leaked and just how much was coming out of them. So it's not a situation where you'd like to, this is a situation you don't want to have. You want to have it so that it's nicely, it stays contained. That's the whole big deal. Okay, sorry about that. FedEx just showed up. Anyway, so yes, I wanted to show and pull the liners out so that you had an opportunity to see these and how much condensate has come through them. If you look down at the other photos, you can actually see where the liners are cracked and broken apart. You can see the amount of glazing, or not glazing, but soot that's penetrated inside the liner over a period of time. So joints and cracks and chimneys, yes, they go all the way through. If you see one on the inside, guaranteed it's on the outside, and moisture, condensate, soot are going to make their way through it. So be aware of that. We talked again about the 4 pathways, and again I've also just made a list of them here, the things that you would see. Misaligned liners, scorch marks, unlined chimneys, vertical cracking, water damage, defective mortar joints, efflorescence, flaking liners, hidden breachings, horizontal cracking, pieces of liner that are missing, and also animal intrusion. So those are some of the big ones that you would find in this area. And I also put a checklist for you to work off of if you'd like to, and a system of being able to code them so that when you go back to the shop, you know what you're looking at. So anyway, we're just going to go down through a little bit. I'm going to show you again some situations involving latent defects that you will see. This is of course a great one. 3-quart brick seems to be about on the top of the list that people put in chambers and forget to seal them up. So and again, this is the wrong type of brick to be using for that application anyway. So lots of times going to be just practices in here that you read. You go ahead and you can read through them. They're there for you to look at and to reference from time to time. The same thing goes with wear and tear. We put those there for you so you have a chance to understand the differences between what a latent defect is and what a wear and tear. And here's actual situations that you can see to understand it. Gas and same moisture issues. We go through this with you. You check that out accordingly. Moisture in the interior. And those things that you should look for in there. Sudden occurrences, again, the same thing. We have, chimney fire, microbursts, damage from sudden movement, trees falling on chimneys, and forest fires, grass fires, whatever. You have those all in there. So we listed them there for you so you had them. Then here on this part of the chimney section itself, we kind of gave you an idea what angle they were shot at, so you kind of had a better idea, or basically an idea what they look like in real life. Now, obviously, the vertical cracking is most likely from a sudden occurrence. The same thing, we have an unlined chimney. That unlined chimney happens to be here in Jefferson County. It was at the courthouse. I had to take out a 2-foot thick, it was 21-inch round chimney, a 2-foot thick swift nest. After they were gone, it was in November, we totally got it all cleaned out, and this is what was left inside there. So they did repair that. They did reseal the interior of the chimney, and they relined it with a stainless steel liner down to the size of what the boiler needed. So that gives you a story on that one. The same thing happens with, on the left side, misalignments. This is common occurrence that happens. And on the right side, here's an indication to show you the vertical cracking and a scorch mark. Down at the bottom there, between the two liners, where the liner itself is thoroughly cleaned off, is a real indication that this air was introduced into that area, which allowed the fuel to completely burn and get extremely hot and clean the liner off. So that gives you an idea what that would look like. Same thing down at the bottom, vertical cracking that you'll see inside the chimney, and also vertical and horizontal, and sometimes transverse cracking will happen. And this is what you'll see on the camera. So we put those in there for you to take a look at. You can see the condensation issues. So these are here for you to give you an idea of what you're going to see once you're inside the chimney. Joints. Same thing here. There's an open mortar joints and some that are dry stacked on top of each other. This gives you an indication that there may have been a joint there at some point in time. In most cases, they just put on top of each other, and they'll look like this that they do on the right side on page 52. So anyway, there's some extras or examples for you that you can look and try to understand where we're coming from with this. This isn't all chimney fire related stuff. This is stuff that happens that it's been for either through poor construction or latent defect to wear and tear, or poor choice of mortars and things. That this is what will happen. So not every damage inside a chimney is a chimney fire. It's not. There's a lot of things out there that wear and tear that happen that you need to be aware of and be able to explain to the customer, understand what really is going on inside there. Same thing with offsets. Lots of times this is where there's a change. Like, remember I told you about transitions? Anytime there's a transition, this is where they goof up. There's the same situation here with this. Instead of taking the liners and cutting them so that they're the same angle, most of the time they'll leave one like this and one like this, and then there's this whole big open gap area here. Sometimes got a chunk of something holding it up while they put all the rest of the masonry work around it. The old joke is they put a beer can in there to hold it. There's a lot of urban legends out there, but I have seen beer cans. So it's just a situation that if there's going to be a transition, be extremely aware that this is probably where there's going to be some difficulties. Stainless steel, we showed you that photo before, but down here, some of these here that you did see, the latent defects, these were just jammed together. They did a poor job. They didn't use the requirements that the manufacturer has made for these type of products, and so they just puffed it in there and jammed some refractory cement, hoping that it's going to stay there. And in knowing stainless steel, expansion, contraction, that's probably going to be there about a year, and then it's gone, which means now smoke and the condensates are now going to be on the other side of the liner instead of being contained in the liner. So the bottom line is the reline was a pure waste of time because it wasn't done properly. Too long of screws, be a real problem when you start to sweep this thing. A soot gets on those things, or you get your brush attached, or your rods or cable can get hacked on these. So be very careful of bad things like this. Continue scanning, okay, from the top down. All right, we put some things in here for you to show you the examples within the masonry fluids, but we also want you to double check your SD card reader. Lots of times I get to the top of the chimney, if I've done some scan work or taken some pictures along the way, when I get to the top, I'll just stop and I'll just go over to the button, the arrow, and I'll just go to my menu button and look at playback, and I'll just go through to make sure I have the dates. So if I have the dates there, I might select one of them, go, okay, that's what I want. Yep, photo's crystal clear, life is good. Go back to the menu, go back down, and I'm ready to and hit escape, get out of it, and the camera's back to live camera, and I'm ready to keep on going. So I do that from time to time just to make sure that I'm getting all my images down. So, and the same thing, I try to keeping within my area. As you see here, I'm reviewing it as the camera's up there, and I'm reviewing it right now. So I'll check it out and I'll make sure everything's okay. Then I'll go ahead and I'll finish the scan and go down through it. So then downloading. I have a whole thing on it, basically on how to do the Chim-Scan to the iPads, and I put up a little video for you, and I put the QR code in for you so you have it, and then the device. And it's really, most of the time, since you're working off the SD card, you take the SD card out, put it in a lightning adapter, and your camera roll will roll up, go yes, boom, exit, and you have it. To me, it seems faster and more reliable than working with apps. Apps sometimes are great, Wi-Fi is great most of the time, but there's times when they don't work. And I'm one who's had things that don't work, and if that's the case, I kind of go old school, and I do that for a reason, is that the reliability is there, so that's what I do it. If you've had great luck with Wi-Fi, good, I'm happy for you. So anyway, packing up to get the same thing, you're going to put the unit back away. Also, we wanted to put in here too, on page 55, it's very, very important that you do this. If you find the damper open, and when you come to someone's home, if they are there, I ask them, do you want me to leave the damper open, or would you like me to close it? and find out that they do. And if they're not there and you do close it, then please put it in writing that you closed the damper. There have been insurance claims in the past that have come out against sweeps and other contractors because they did close the damper, and the homeowner didn't realize it, started a fire up, didn't think about it. Next thing you know, he's got a house full of smoke, and then he's calling. Then you get a letter from somebody that said, hey, we're suing you because of damages because you did something. Well, be sure that you put this in writing so that they have it. And if something does happen, you say, well, we did warn you. It's right here. So anyway, that's a real thing. The insurance companies will love me for it. Glass doors, again, the same thing. When you finish up, make sure the screens and then doors and stuff close properly, and clean up accordingly. Of course, when you're putting your tarp back up on page 56, work from the corners. Okay, bring it all back and so you have it. So this way here, all the debris that you have inside there is now inside the tarps, and take it outside and shake it out accordingly when you find a place to do that. So this is pretty much go through. You can recheck. This is the end of for doing masonry fireplaces. So once you do you've done all your work, whether you work off a checklist or this is the time that you do the checklist now, you could do that. It's great. Go through, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. I've got all this. Okay, great. And when you're done, you finish up the job and you're ready to head off to the next job. So that's kind of some of the things that we put in here for you. And the rest of those things you can read, they're in the manual. So this is the end of on page 58 of working with masonry fireplaces. Thanks a lot. Okay, continuing on, let's go into mod 2. This is, for the most part, all the things that we discussed about the masonry fireplace are going to be contained in this. Now we have a little complication that we have either an insert or a hearth stove or appliance hooked to it. This is where it gets a little bit dicey. If your home inspector becomes really dicey because you can't move any of these things around or disconnect anything. So it makes it harder for you. That the only real place that you may have is be able to go to the top of the roof, take the cap off, and go in from there to examine the interior of the liner. So we put access points for you, or in some cases, like on page 59, we have the stars that show you your access points. In some situations, if you can see that if there's a liner put at the top of the chimney, yay, because this might be a workout that you may be able to open a door, and if it's a removable baffle, which in most cases there should be, or a fiber board or whatever that you can be removed carefully, move it to the side, and you can push the camera up through. Then you go ahead and you can scan the chimney, and this is it's a real easy scan because all you just fish it up through the liner, and you're off and running. So that's a really great way to if it happens. But in some of these applications, this isn't going to be real. You may have what they call a direct connect kit, which we'll discuss here a little bit later on with the hearth appliances, where it only goes to the first liner. So and that has to be disassembled for you to go ahead and do the work. If you're a chimney contractor, chimney sweep, you know what the drill is. You're going to probably, if this is all lined, then you probably want to just go to the top and sweep it down and try to collect it out at the base. If the baffle's not removable, then have to suck it out accordingly with a hose. Or if it hasn't been lined, then we officially would call it a slammer, which is then you got just the front plate across it. The thing is venting in the backside of the fireplace, and it's a giant mess. And you're going to have to schlep out 400 to 600 pounds of steel out on your rollers on your insert puller, and go in there, go ahead and sweep the whole thing out and put it back in. And highly recommend to the customer that he would put a liner to this. That also will help with the amount of glazed creosote you find in the back of it. The same thing's going to happen too when we have questions for you to go through. Lots of times you forget about checking for if it's a double-sided fireplace or mantle clearances, or did you check the doors and make sure that the doors open and close properly? Did the gaskets seal properly? Those are just kind of concerns that most people would like to know. If you have a hearth stove on page, there we are, page 61, this is where it gets a little bit, sometimes this can be relatively easy and other times it becomes real complicated. But in this case here in the diagram, we show you where your access point could be, but you're only going to get, the way this diagram's set up, you're going to get to the T and that's it. And if it's blocked off in the front, as you see here, then your chance of getting to the back is like bare none. So again, either removing the appliance to get it out, and then get the faceplate taken apart to get to the T to move on from there, or just go to the top and see what you can do about sweeping it down. But again, if you do sweep it down, you have to get the debris out of it, which means you have to get down to the T cover to clean it all out. So with that being said, you have to pretty much disassemble everything to get it clean to put it back together again. If they were do the plate version, basically where they do a plate across the damper area, and if this is exposed, then you can just remove the appliance and get a brush or something from the bottom, and a rotary brush or whatever, go up and sweep the chimney, bring it all back down, collect the debris, do your scan, and then put the installation back together. So those are the simplest, easiest ways that I can tell you to go through to get to your access points, to actually visually see the interior of the chimney. I really don't like sweeping a chimney without going through and making sure that I scan it. I just don't know if I did a good job, which I hope I did, or the brush did the job it's supposed to do, or whether or not there was a defect and I didn't see it because it was disguised. So I like to scan everything. Again, the same thing here, our throat close area. I want to get down here to show you if we have, I think we have some photographs of a direct connect kit. Maybe I forgot about them. No, I'm sure we did. This one's showing you going all the way up, but we do have one showing you a direct connect kit. It's on page 60 something here, and as soon as I find it, I'll warn you about it. We were talking about that this connection between it, I think I have a photograph. Well, I'm not seeing it right away, but we do have a photograph about getting to the back portion of it. I just want to go back here for you. On page 63, you see a consolidated Dutch West stove with a tape measure on top of it. That's an application where you could get behind the stove, remove the bottom plate, sweep the chimney up, and this did have a direct connect kit onto it, and you're able to sweep that part of it. But again, to really thoroughly clean it, you're going to have to remove the plate, pull the direct connect kit out, go back and clean all the debris off that's fallen on the shelf and in the chamber itself, and clean it to put it all back together again. So a lot of you guys that have worked out there or work on these things just prefer to have a liner to it. It makes life so much simpler, and you can sweep it. Almost the homeowner can sweep it. It's almost that simple. So let's keep that in mind. But we wanted to make you aware that there are some considerations and some problems dealing with those. We also went through basically with all the information we have as far as doing the inspection work, your checklist. We put that in there for you. That's on page 64. And then we did the same thing on the appliances. On 65, we went through a little checklist for you, clearance on the labels, manufacturer's instructions, door gaskets, window gaskets, air intake, catalytic combustors, thermometers present, bricks needed, outside air, direct vent gas. All those questions and stuff are here, just so that you go through it, so that when you're working on the installation, you've checked or looked at almost all the parts to this thing, so that you can tell them whether or not it's in an operational ready state, or if there's a defect someplace, where the defect is, and how you can repair it. That's what the key thing is about being an inspector. Alrighty, accesses, and again, yes, on page, there's a good picture on page 66. That is the back side of the consolidated Dutch West that I had done. They had made up their own little conjured up bottom plate, but at least there's a bottom plate there, and you can see creosote had run out all through the sides of it from burning. So and this did suffer a chimney fire. It's got a really funny story about this thing, because I got called in to look at it and I could not touch anything because the fire had happened, because they were immediately going to be subrogated against the other insurance company for doing it. I had to lower the camera down, which is this is the first time in a lot of years where I had to lower the camera down without sweeping out the chimney. So the matter is just trying to lower it down slowly, getting past all the puffy creosote, getting down. Then I got to the direct connect kit, which was just inside the first liner, and I noticed something really bizarre. And what I found was that it was just this cake of creosote that had burned, but it was just still in the corner of the direct connect kit, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out what it is. Pulled the camera back up, we came back down, and I opened up that T section, and I put the camera back up through, and then that's what I found. I could not believe in my eyes. But what had happened, this was the first job, a carpet cleaner who decided to sweep chimneys in the fall. This was his first job he ever did, and he put the brush up through it, got it stuck, and cracked and broke the fiberglass rod, and left the brush inside the chimney. Well, guess what happened? All that creosote, that little fine little bristles from that brush were all collecting with creosote until it built itself up to a giant fireball. And you bet, 3 o'clock in the morning, this guy decided to let loose. And luckily the homeowner, and unfortunately, the homeowner just had back surgery, was in a chair when he heard the roar, and was able to get in and pull down the plate and be able to put some fire retardant from a fire extinguisher and try to keep it down while they called the fire company to get in and get to this roof and then put the fire out. But so I was called in to do that, and when I was on the floor pushing the camera up there, I finally saw, and I looked up at the adjuster and said, somebody's getting a letter from Dewey, Cheatham and Howe. And he goes, why? I said, look at the screen, and you can see the bottom remnants of the brush that was still left inside there yet. So it's about 2 years later, I did see the adjuster, and he very nicely said, the case is over, we won, it's all been settled, and here's the brush. So he gave it to me as a memento, it's left. So yeah, it's amazing what you run across from time to time, but this was just kind of an indication of these guys can be a little, that's why I'm trying to tell you the story. They are a little complicated, so you know, that's why it's better sometimes if it gets over your head, have a certified chimney sweep come in, take a look at it for you, and be able to take it apart. And that's what they're trained to do. So okay, so we have check-off boxes for your connector pieces and stuff are all on here also too, so you have those, and your backup accesses and your plates we discussed. And here's a kit that I knew I had a picture here. On page 67, this is what a direct connect kit looks like. A very elaborate one. Most of the times they come off the back of the stove and they're just a piece of flexible stainless steel. This here in the artist rendition, we went through and made the parts come out for you. And in some cases they're going to be like this. So you don't know what you're going to walk into, but that's the artist rendition. I have seen things, like this, but most of the times I find flexible stainless. So that's what you'll find. So that kind of continues on inside to give you an idea. And again, if you have to go to the roof, on page 68, I did this in the lab. If you have to go to the roof, what I do is I just snip my stabilizers just a little bit lighter so that the camera can move easily inside the liner, where my respirator strap the unit to the chimney. I usually use this what do you want to call those things? Like a shipping strap. You do that with a ratchet handle on it. You have to be careful, don't over ratchet. Put that on there, and it holds the camera on the side for me and allow you to go ahead and look at it. And the screen's right down in front of you. In some cases, on sunny days, if I have to do this, I'll put a drop cloth over top of my head and the monitor. Then I don't have the glare on the thing. Just when you go to put, and I don't do the rods either, because I just lower the camera down by the cable. The cameras are so light anymore, it's not a big deal. Just lower it down on the cable. If it goes around offset, be careful, but you know, if it's not a real severe bend, then continue on with your scan. But just realize to keep your stabilizers, you know, on the loose side, so the camera can move. And that pretty much concludes the thing I have here about supports. We did that already. The conditions to look for, we did those for you. So this is just a review. And we did this too because we did these in modules to think that, well, if you see an open fireplace, that this doesn't happen when you put these appliances on it. No, that's why we go through and we show you the puffy creosote, the bad stainless steels, the debris that you'll find there, the moisture, the condensates, and all those things on page 71. They're there for a reason, because you're going to see them. And sometimes when you put an appliance onto it, they're worse. You'll get more glazing, and you hopefully not puffy creosote, which leads you to believe that there was a sun event. So anyway, those are what you go through while you're scanning when you have an appliance in the front of it. We do the same thing, showing you the liners, and again, same clay things. We also go through the defects that you would run across. You know, dry stacking, and on page 73 you'll go through that. And again, by page 74, that's a situation where that's the old days. In this day and age, probably you may not see that. If you do, there's what can tell you what's going on. There'll definitely be a lot of wear and tear here, because that glazing that's on the outside, that's the condensate or creosote that's come down, is going to eat that block work up like no time. And in a short period of time, it'll eat the shingles. It just eats everything. So when you see things like this, you realize that you have a moisture issue, and the wood is either probably wet or it's cold, or whatever the deal is. The temperatures between what the smoke should be and what it is dramatically different, and it's causing it to condense and come out. So where I lived in Pennsylvania, when I worked on it, I could not use screen caps, because the amount of creosote within a week, 2 weeks, those things were plugged up. So that is where the beginning of caps that were just legs standing up came from that concept that I had many, many years ago, and talked with Bob Daniels, and they created caps with no screen, and that's why, because of this problem. So that's going through that for you. 74. This are all the 4 pathways we go through. We list the items that you need to check out and take a look at. And let's see, anything else here in this chapter? Again, photographs of the interior of the chimneys. We show you joints. We show you the offsets. Yep, got that. And we're going down to where the photographs, again, we talked about the scanning, putting them together. Make sure, when you're doing a scan, you might want to stop if you're at the top and check to make sure that you're getting your images. Most of the times, if I'm doing my scan, if I hit the play button and I see the deck should blink like twice, the second LED will go boop boop like this, and it does. It took the photograph, so I know that I have it. And sometimes I'll be going through it and I don't see it and I go, what's going on? Next thing I got 20 photos of the same thing. Okay, today the light didn't decide to work, but needless to say, I do verify and I do check it. There's nothing worse than coming home from the job and all of a sudden you go, I don't have any photos. So please be sure and verify before you leave that you have the photographs you need. So that's pretty much what I have in this chapter here. And after that, just packing it up. And of course, if it is an installation where you have blowers and stuff on it, if you do unconnect the 120 volt cord from the wall, please put it back in and verify that the fan works. Okay, and the same thing if it's a gas appliance, whatever, do the same thing there too. Pack up, check over your checklist, make sure you have it, and you've completed the scans for doing inserts and the hearth stoves for those units. And now we'll proceed on and go ahead and I'll talk to you more about Alrighty, now we're going to go on to the next module, which is going to be masonry thimble chimney serving either a liquid or wood fuel. Again, we start out with a diagram on the outside of it. We go through the terms so that you know that, so you can look for terminology of how to say and what to say. We also put the stars on the page for you too, so you know where your access points will be to get into the system. So we also talk to you about double wall connectors and how to deal with those. If you're a home inspector, again, usually I would go through the bottom star on that diagram and try to go through the cleanout port. If there isn't one there, then the other option you have is you have to disconnect the connector pipe, which doesn't go along with what you can do, so which means your access point probably will have to be from the top. So hope and pray that there's a cleanout port that allows you to take a look at the chimney. So okay, which will require safety equipment and a ladder to go up on the roof to do that. But if you are also doing roof inspections too, then this isn't a big deal. You're already there. So begin your scan, the same thing too. If there's a liquid appliance that's on it, you're going to have to know where to shut it off. If it's an oil or gas appliance, usually what I would do to how to find that is I turn the thermostat up, let them go, let them turn on, and make sure that they're working properly. And once I know that, I can either turn the thermostat down, then find the emergency switches, or go to the breaker box, either way, and disable it, disengage it so it's no longer on. If it's in a gas appliance, then basically you want to flip it over onto pilot also. That way, especially if the hot water heater is included to it, so that does not come on when you're working. There's nothing worse than having an oil burner take off on you when you got a connector pipe down. Been there, done that. I don't want to ever have to do it again. So be very, very careful that, even if there's domestic hot water coils on these systems, be wary to make sure that you have full control and the unit is dead before you continue to do any work on it. Again, if you're home inspector, you're going through cleanout port. If you're a chimney sweep, most likely you go through the cleanout port for sweeping. Or if you have to go to the roof, or in some cases you have to take the connector pipe down. If you do, always take a picture of the barometric damper if it's an oil appliance, and be sure that it was operating. Just hit it with your finger, just make sure it swings, and that's okay. Then when you take it back down, make sure it's in the same connection place as you do it. You may want to consider too, if it's kind of older pipe and things are a little bit loose and things could move on you, what you can do is take a magic marker, mostly either silver or black black pen, and just put a mark on each one of the sections as you take it down. That way, if an elbow is twisted or turned, you know that it has to go back in these connection places as it did originally. By doing that, doesn't do it inconspicuously, usually underneath the elbow coming through, just to make sure everything goes back where it's supposed to go. This is kind of as like cheater's way of making sure that everything went back the way you set it. So that's a note from a guy who's been an old oil burner tech. Anyway, so we have your check boxes here, allow you to go through and check the base of the chimney, the top of the chimney, caps, and whatnot. They're all on page 87 for you. The reasons why you're doing your level 1 and level 2s. And we have then with the considerations for going through, as we're scanning from the roof, we've done that. Wooden coal appliances, and the same thing too, we go through the checklists involving manufacturer's instructions, wall protections, non-insulated or insulated floors or non-combustible floors, gaskets in place. All that's been added to the checklist for you, so you have that. We have those in there properly sloped, and again, is it sealed, is it sloped, is it the appropriate size of the appliance? Those all have to be mentioned and checked into. So, okay, let's see, we go through the checklist on appliances, barometric dampers, swing, I talked about earlier. That's on there. It's on page 90, and on 91, again, checklist for working over your connector pipe and different various situations that you may run across. And does it work? We got that right. Turning it off, talked about that. Barometric dampers, draft hoods. On page, let's see, where am I now? I'm on page 93. We're going through again with the liner. Then I guess we go through all the same, kind of the same things. I do this because that you understand that if you're just doing this module, you will most likely see the same things if you're working in a masonry fireplace or working with an insert or a hearth stove, and the same thing if you're working with a combustible liquid or solid fuel appliance. You're going to see these same situations. So they will be available, and they are in here for you for reference. Okay, I'll get down the base of the thing here, going through checking that out, starting the liners, encompassing those screens. Again, going through thimbles, we have a whole thing here on showing you how to go through thimbles, and it's a case of where you put your hand inside it. We do have a QR code. I do have a video that shows you precisely how to get the thing through it. And if some of you are having difficulties getting around some things, we do have a special spring for the back side of the camera, for the combo cameras, that help you get a little bit more flexibility to get the camera up through inside the thimble. But yes, it is very possible to do it, and you can do it without scratching the lens. The key thing is understanding and knowing that when you put the camera in, that your hand is near the lens. Your hand guides the camera around the sharp edges of the thimble, and once it's up inside the chimney, you're home free. When you bring the camera back down, the same thing, you pull it back down. When you're just about to the point of bringing it around the offset, you put your hand inside the chimney, you grab the lens, you pull the camera down, and you pull it out to yourself like this. By doing that, relieves the pressure off of it, and you can do that all day long and not put one scratch on the lens. So it's critical that you understand that. A lot of folks don't. I can tell you by the amount of scratch lenses we replace, they just yank it out and put it in and wonder why it gets scratched. Well, it's because you got to just protect it to go through it. So this manual does cover it, the QR code. We do talk about that. Okay, let's see. We go through all the pathways that are the same things that you'll run across for wear and tear. Moisture-related issues, latent defects are also included in here under this category. Let's see, flue tile defects. Again, we talk about those. We have those for you. That's on page 102. Your different degree and angles and what you'll see inside the chimney is on page 103. Your joints will be on page 104 to show you what they look like. And you can slow me down, stop me anytime you want to. I'm from New Jersey, and unfortunately I talk fast when I'm lecturing. So at any time you want to stop me, look at your page, look at your book, by all means, please do so. This is what this is for. I'm kind of giving you a run through, and that way there also helps with your CEU credits if I have this on there for you. So that's why we did this. And looking at stainless liners again, and joints, controls, how to do your SD recorders, and how to do your recordings from digital devices, i.e. like to an iPad, and a QR code again to show you how to do that. So same thing there, we're finishing up. If you, whatever you unplug, put plug back in. And if you're working with liquid appliances, make sure that everything's all put back together, put the necessary switches back on, and turn the thermostat back up, and make sure that everything is working, okay? If not, then you're gonna have to have an HVAC contractor or somebody help you to find out. But the cool thing is, if you do this beforehand, if there is a problem, if it doesn't come on, you can state right on your report that did not come on. Okay, that way there they can't come back and say, well, it did work before and you did something. No, I have documentation proof, and with today's phones that say I turned the switch on and nothing's happening, it's in a video format, can be the difference between whether you get tagged with a bill for repair, or it was in repair beforehand and they were, you know, dumping bags on you. So so for that reason, that's why I like to make sure that they're working. There's another really cool thing. If you're working with oil, I used to do this because, and I turned the appliances on for a really good reason. One, to make sure that it worked, and two, I just needed enough heat in the chimney. Even in the summertime, it worked great. Heat in the chimney, just let it run for like a minute or two, and then shut it down, and the heat was inside the chimney. So whenever I took the connector pipe off, it'd just blow up. I had a draft already, so it wasn't in my face immediately. And if you do work on oil appliances, or any appliances for that matter anymore, please be wearing a full face respirator from get-go. Don't be doing this stuff without a respirator on. It's not worth it, folks. Life is too short. Please protect yourself. Goggles, respirator, and nitro gloves, and gloves over top of it. Really handy to keep the stuff off of you. So just as a reminder to go do that. So as you're finishing up your cleanups on here, again, we go through your checklist, the same things we've done with before, and then you're set to go. So you can use it anytime, the checklists that we have here. If you wish to see the whole form, that's great. Or if you want to take something and select it to put it on with your existing forms, we're good. Okay, so that's why they're there. Okie dokies. Now, okay. Yes, on to the next project, Module 4, scanning prefabricated fireplaces. I could spend just 2 hours alone just on this, but I'm not. Most of the things I put in the manual are already there. So at any time during this presentation you want to stop, take a breather, go through the book a little bit more, or whatever, that's fine. That's why we did this in video as an overview for it. But all the information that we could possess is put into the manual, so you have it. When you're talking about prefabricated fireplaces, obviously we start out with a diagram that we have in the front for you. That will be on page 112. And we have all the terms and terminology for you and the parts to it, so that you understand how the full installation goes. And we have close-ups of it, and we also put the star in. I would probably say 99% of the times, if I have my opportunity for the access point to get into a fireplace to scan it, I'm going to do it through the damper. Now, most of your standard fireplace, and this is where it gets a little crazy once in a while. In different areas of the country, you'll have a supplier or distributor in the area that's distributed and has sold a lot of products in that area. So you'll find this product in a lot of homes all through your area. Then other times you might get spotty, where you might find one brand here and another brand over here in different geographical sections of the country, and that will happen too. But the real trick is most of them will have the ability for you to get the camera up through. Most of them will be just the 8-inch round, which allows you, or sometimes there's 9, but most of the times 8-inch round. They turn sideways. You find out which side the bracket is, and you go on the other side that's open and put the camera through. If you're using the combo camera, I use the camera. I don't use my head anymore. I put the camera head up. I look at the screen. I find out which side it is, and I put my hand, leave it there, begin to push the camera up through it. And guide the camera. Again, my hand next to the lens, go past the damper. Once I get through the bottom part of the whiskers get popped up through, then I can remove my hand down and begin my scan. So that's how I get through like 90% of the dampers that are out there. Some, I can't remember the name of the manufacturer, I think it was Martin, but don't hold it to me, that had a special style that had on both sides, you couldn't get past it. So that made that a little bit rough. Superiors, I know, have a way of dropping down, which means you have to lower the camera way down and come back up, but you can do it. You just have to do it like that application to get it through. So These are how the access is that we get through them. Again, we've put some checklist items and stuff in there for you to take a look at it. Then you go through your access points. If it has a blower system into it and you want to unplug it, you're most welcome to do it. Probably it's not going to be a problem. The biggest criteria you have, now let's just go back just a little sec back to if you have to do a top. Doing a top scan might get a little bit rough. In some parts of the country, you're going to either have the chimney cap, which is screwed on in multiple places and has never been removed since the time it was put on 20 years ago. So it may be a little bit difficult to get off. So that's why I really recommend that you do from the bottom up. In other situations, you may be in the area of the country where they use shrouds. Some of them are approved, some of them are not. So you need to understand that before you start taking things apart, that there could be some issues involved getting it put back on. So thoroughly check out what you're doing before you get started. So that's why. Then again, I would say, like I said, 90% of the times you're going to go through the front of them. Again, push the doors out of your way. Make sure that the screen's open for you. If you have to, in some of these guys, remove the grate. You can. For the size if it's a normal manufactured grate for that fireplace, you should not have an issue. If you're having issues with a damper because it's high and spiked up on the top like this, you may want to consider saying something, because they probably put an oversized big box store, went and got new grate, stuck inside the fireplace, and now they're ready to load up 6-8 pieces of wood. That's not recommended. If you see that, please note that. There has been enough structure fires in the past that people have gone to big box stores, don't use the appropriate OEM grate that's supposed to be there, overfire the fireplace, and ends up in a structural fire. Guaranteed. So please, if you see it, note it and make sure that people understand that this is not what this was intended to. This is supposed to be a display, display and have a fire. It is not to have a heater. Okay, there is some heat that is generated from them, yes, but at the same time, they're not designed to throw on logs like this and throw them into the fireplace, which some people think that's really cool, but it's not. All right, so that's my speech on that. Ashes and things, again, same push away. And as I continue to work, you can, if you're a home inspector, having a small vac like from DeWalt like this one here might not be a bad idea. If you can get a small HEPA, even better. Something that's, if you have to suck up something, you have that there. Where I find these to be really practical, because there's the fly ash content in the logs, or especially if someone has used manufactured logs, they have a tendency to put out an oil soot, which is very flyable, I guess is the best way to put it. So you have to be very careful if you open up a damper and you see that there's a lot of fly ash. When you put the camera through, this stuff can go somewhere, and most likely it's going to go on your gloves, and it's going to go on the camera, it's going to go on the rods, and which you're going to then permeate it through the rest of the operation. So in that case, I would recommend that you have a vac, to help you clean up when you're done. Chimney sweeps, you kind of know that you know the rule, you know what's going on. You'll have your sweeping equipment available to clean up, and then do your scan. So with that said, we'll move on to refractory panels. Again, same thing with refractory panels. All the research I've done sums out come down, if a panel is cracked, it's cracked. If you can stick a dime into it, another manufacturer says put a nickel into it, then it's time for it to be replaced, okay? So seeing small crazing lines through the refractory is normal wear and tear. Now if it's broken out, as a piece is missing or something, that's a totally different ball of wax. So that means you're gonna have to definitely recommend replacement of the refractory panels before continued use. So a little bit of inspection process there, but again, getting the camera up through that should not be a real difficult thing. So I have them here set for you, different medias that you run across. If you have gas logs, we went through that for you on page 118. Slide dampers and the mechanisms that go with it on 119. Let's see, and again, the same thing as far as using a Webster brush. If you run across a lot of cobwebs that hasn't been used, I definitely would use a Webster brush. Show you some indications that you run across that you'll see, which we posted there again for you. We look for moisture too inside the chimney, and the biggest thing you want to find out probably is like on page 122, you'll notice the stainless steel is attacked by corrosion, and this is really what you're looking for. You'll go through, and stainless pipe has a variety of different characteristics, but I will tell you this much to you. I have some of this information in the manual, but I didn't go through it as much as I'm going to do now. If you go into a prefabricated fireplace and you're looking at the stainless steel pipe, and you find that the pipe is not a continuous bronze color. In other words, when the stainless gets warmed from the fires and the soot and whatever, after a while they get a really nice bronze color to them. But as time goes on, if you notice that the bronze starts to either get darker or it's patchy, then it's the time to go, because something has happened that caused that pipe to get overheated in special areas. So which means there's a good chance there was a sudden occurrence and it's left no indications left. There's no puffy creosote, there's no time, there's no date, so which means you're going to have to use your wits on how to document this. And look for checking the seams and also checking the joints themselves. That's really super critical for doing seam checks. I love using the viral combo camera, look directly up. That way I can see whether the liner is round or whether it's been cocked. That's really super critical. And it also tells me if I have the seams that are supposed to be like this are now bent in like this. That also tells me that there's been an overheating situation. Could be from wear and tear. That you might find this is a person who runs their fireplaces 6 or 8 hours a day. You know, that can happen. Or they may have had a sudden occurrence and not realized it. So you need to do some checking out to document that properly. But I'm looking for corrosion and I'm looking for joints that aren't put together. So looking straight up will show me the Y effect, or that little V effect that's on the side of it, and using the 90-degree lighthouse camera going around, verify whether all the lances are connected. You want to see a movement go back and forth. In some situations where you have bronze pipe together, you'll have an area that looks like it's like a light, like an 1/8 inch, maybe up to a 1/4 inch, but more like about, let's say 3/16 of this little light band that goes all the way around. If that light band is consistent in width and size, life is good. The light then shows you the line is going up and down and it's rubbing and it's causing that band. If you see in a situation where it's like this tight over here and like this tight over here, that's telling you that the pipe is not connected. So you also should see the lances that are, or the connectors that they haven't incorporated into the pipe. So those are things that you're looking at in a scan that's very, very critical toward the safety of it. And I don't care how big the light you have or how many years you've been looking at in the field, you will not see this with your naked eye because you have to see it up close. And cameras are the only way they're going to make that happen. All right, so we go through, we have the coding for you, we go through the 4 pathways again, and again, based on page, I'm going to show you on page 124, I'll show you a liner that's been brand new, that was never connected. All right, so this is what you're looking for. Or you could go down the lower of the page. This is one that had been continually used, for over 20 plus years, and is basically falling apart. It's no longer stainless steel; it's steel, and it's very embrittled, and you can break it with your fingers. So that's definitely time for it to be replaced. So we show you those. We show you that what you're going to see as far as corrosion inside the chimney on page 125. So all that's there for you just to see. You just things. This is actual stuff that's been taken from the field, so that you can see this. And then on page 126 and 127, we show you photographs about how to get through the dampers. We actually show you photographs of it, so you can see what it looks like to have the camera go through, and the difference in styles of liners. On page, on page 127 is a cornucopia of bad things, I guess the best way to put it. Up in the corner of the page, you'll see that there's no longer any liner left, that you're looking at the actual insulation of the pipe. That was from my boiler that I had on the outdoor. I have an outdoor wood boiler. I burned it for 6 or 7 years, and that's what's left of it. So I no longer have the boiler, nor do I have the pipe, but I did keep the pipe. This is what stainless steel should look like on the other side, and of course this is the other side of it, where I talked to you before, where you see that humping come up through there like that, the V-shaped bend where the liner is expanded to the point where it can't go back properly, and it bends in. So you see that, then the pipe's over. If you're looking for corrosion, here is a really great photographs of what corrosion looks like. After a period of time, it's actually ripped through. It actually has gone through, and it's pinholed right on through. And so anyway, so those are photographs we've got from the field, so we can show you actual damage and things that you'll find. And we also showed you photographs, using the camera, what angle we went at. That was all displayed on the pages 128 to 130. We go through all those, we show them to you, so that way you have an opportunity to see it up close and personal. But okay, so if we go through this, I think I pretty well have gone through. We tell you checklist again. We go back We finished the chapter, this mod up, again, using for the SD card reader. We verify that, make sure you got your photos before you leave. And then of course, then we show you some of the new considerations that we have with the battery powered units on page 131. 132 again is about talking about working with an iPad. Again, the QR code is there. All these remain the same even though you go through the mods, but we kind of reiterated them to leave them in that if you wanted to put an emphasis on it, that you would know that, well, even though it's in that mod, I'll make sure it's in all the mods so that everyone understands that, yeah, you got to check the SD card recorder, you got to check your stabilizers, check this before you get started, so that way the scan will be a success instead of ruh-roh, something got stuck. So that's why we have to have that in there for you. Any other considerations? Again, if there's gas logs into it, again, be sure that there's a damper clamp on there to make sure that it doesn't totally close all the way. In some cases, you may find out that the installers will tear them out if they're using gas logs. Again, that's something you will find out there. Cleanup again on these guys is if you have to take the grate out, by all means put it back. Many of them still have clips in the back allow you to put the unit in there. Then some of them are new that won't let you take it out. And also make sure that if you do have glass doors, if you've gone up and down in any soot that's fallen, if it falls in the track of the fireplace, the glass doors, be sure to vacuum that out or brush it out, whatever you're going to do, so the homeowner opens it up and next thing you know, his hands aren't dirty or the doors don't close properly. Anyway, so be aware of that. That can happen because it runs down the rod. So be careful of that. And the same thing with glass, with the screens. Again, on an inspection note, if I have a set of glass screens that are really tough, they're rusted, they don't move very well, I will definitely make note of it. Why? Whether I sell screens or I don't sell screens, the bottom line is the customer needs to understand that they need to move freely. If you've got a 10 or 15 pound log in your hand and there's a fire going and you're fighting with a screen and all of a sudden you find yourself, you got your hand burned because of, or something popped out while you're trying to do it, that's not a really great time to find out that you need new screens. So it's really important that they need to move and open and close, smoothly. If not, ask for replacements or have them repaired accordingly. Same thing with doors. It's nothing worse than picking up a door and a door falls off. Not good. When it's hot, it's not fun. So if you can see that there's an issue or possibility, please note it in the report so the customer knows. On the end, again, we go through our checklists again on page 134 to finish up what we have there. And again, the same thing, if you have to go from the top, again, be very careful about taking the cap off. This one's a simple one. It's off my pizza oven, so it's really easy to pop the cap off and then you're ready to go. In other situations, they're not so easy. So again, I'm going to reiterate, if you can go through the bottom, it's much better. Okay, it's mo better. There you go. All right. So, okay, we're going to stop here for a minute and I'm ready to do All right, now that we're going to start on the last module, that's going to be scanning prefabricated chimneys for oil, for liquid fuels, and for solid fuels. So one of the big things about access points with this, there are two different access points. So we'll go through those and show you the differences between how you would access the chimneys. Again, we start out with diagram for you on the side with full terminology so you know the terms for it. Also your access points. If you have a prefabricated chimney with a T on the outside, it's great because that's where your access point will be. Any dirt and whatnot can be collected in a bag or just fall on the ground. Or in some cases you got enough draft as you're sweeping it just goes out the top. So that's usually a really simplest way for access for scanning will be right at that point. The other things too that go with we also have the other diagram showing you a ceiling support. There will be indications when you come into a house that there might be a wood product or gas product or whatever here and the pipe is going up and is into the ceiling, and at that point the matter of fact I can show you one right here. Turn the camera this way and I go down a little bit, I go up. Okay, you can just see it right there, right behind, right there. Right there it is. There's the ceiling support right there off the top of the pizza oven. So that's what that looks like. So anyway, so that's what I forgot. It was this right there. All you have is a T, as I indicated. We go through this. We have your basic information concerning, your checklist of what you want to do for your level 1s and level 2s. Those have been included in thorough process right there for you. So we go through that, and then we're down to your access points. Again, with the T's, it's going to be your simple area to go through. Sometimes your T will be in the interior, and in some applications you may not be able to find the T cap. It's going to be buried in the back of a wall. If that's the case, then you will have to remove the connector pipe and go through there. Depending on how long that is, you may have some difficulties getting the camera up through that. Some T's are designed with a flare on both ends, allows you to go up through with relative ease. Other times they're just straight 90s like this, and you have to go around. That's a little bit tougher. So in some cases like this, I may end up only be able to use just the Enviro camera with a stabilizer. And if that's the case, that's all I can do. I won't be able to see the joints as clearly as I would like to, but at least I've been able to get a chance to scan. If there's something that's V-shaped or warped or this, that, then it gives me an indication that there is something that has gone wrong, and I can then say, hey, please, we're going to have to either do a little level 3 and take something apart to find what's going on. So at least you find it before something tragic happens. So again, we talked to you about the process that you'll need to do to get through all these, and in some cases it'll be definitely putting your drop downs in. We put lots of examples of the connectors that you'll see for either vertical or the ceiling mounts, which we have photographs inside that on page 142 and 143. Doing double walls, how you deal with those. And in most cases, if you're working with that type of installation, you will usually have insulated connector pipe, which is most cases, and it's telescoping, so which means you have to remove a screw at the top and slide the connector down, remove the connector, and then go up, do your scan from there. Most of the times on an application, I will have a plastic bag that I will tape to the base of it, and I can cut a hole and to put the camera up through and do the scan work. Any debris falls into the bag, and when I'm done, I can just take the bag off and put the connector back on. If you're a home inspector, you will not be able to do that. Your only access is going to be from the roof down. In some cases, you're going to be working on 12 pitch roofs, so it's not an easy application. So you may require to have a certified chimney sweep come in and help you come in and finish that work for you. So when you're dealing with liquid fuels, again, as I talked about them earlier on masonry thimble chimneys, find the power, turn it off, make sure that the thing is disabled, and allow you to go ahead and do the scan without difficulty of it turning on. If in some cases, if you just want to, if it's category 1, you can put them on pilot, which will stop them from happening. But again, turn them on before you start, make sure they operate, and then turn them back off. Give them a few minutes, get yourself checked up with your equipment, get things set up, and then begin to do the scan. Don't let it burn too hard, or it gets too hot, you can't work with it. So, but it does help in drafting and keeping dust off the lens. Sometimes you run into this of B vent, which you can do. Cat 1s we've done. We talked all about that. That's all through here again, through 145 and 146. Various conditions you have, we run across, we put that in there. You will see some glazing if it's on a wood appliance from time to time, but as a rule, if they're burning properly, you should just have a fine soot, which is relatively easy to sweep off or to scan through. If there's too much, if it's like I said, if it gets over 2/8 of an inch, it's much better to have somebody come in and sweep the chimney out, and then continue on from there, because it's not worth dealing with all the soot falling down on you. And you can't see anything because it's full of soot, so you can't see the wall.
I can say! Yeah, I was wrong.
So that's critical that you understand that. And we also talk about condensations and things and how to put the cameras through. Let's see, anything else here? Because we have all the information for you on the 4 pathways. We've all those listed those for you. We have all the other parts here put together. Pipe that's bad, 151, 160, 151, 152. Compromised seams, we show you those again too. So these are radiation. Some of these, you've got like serially damaged corroded pipe. This can happen, so you have to be very aware of it, that there's some pipe out there. So doing the looking straight up view and doing the 360 degree coming back down, that's real critical, because this is where you'll pick up that stuff. You may not see it looking straight up, so that's important that you know that. And we also just put in some extra examples for you down there. Lock pipe, different degree of angles to go through, and discolorations that you see inside there, which I discussed earlier, and photographs of what you would actually see inside the chimney. Again, we finish up the chapter again where we're talking about working with the SD card and going through the step-by-step process with that. Plus, if you want to refer back to the operator's manual, you can do that. and then finish up accordingly inside the book. And this is put things back together again. If it's a liquid appliance, be sure that it's operating when you leave, and you're set to go. So I hope you got a lot from the book. We put a lot into it to help you go through all the various different stages and styles and kinds of installations that you'll see out in the field. So if there's any other questions you have, please feel free to call us. We've been doing this for over 38 years, and my daughter, just unbelievably what we can do, what we have come through, and what we've done, and where we're going, how much more things we have to work with. So with that, I guess I'm pretty much going to say thank you very much for watching. I hope this helps you as far as your plan. If you're going to continue on to do the test, you can do that. You can refer to this. The test will be taken from the book. Okay, so I may have referred to things that may be repeated in there, but the test was designed from the book. So if you are going through it and if you're looking for a question, the right answer, I would definitely suggest looking at the book. I try to do an overview of the whole thing for you really quickly. That way, it's just give you an idea about what to look for, and so, a couple stories along the way of the experience we have, and also the absolute joy that we do in putting together the product and being the ability to work with you guys on a day-to-day basis. On that, I truly say I am honored. Okay, that's about it. I have this here. It's all ready for you to go. If you'd like to take the test, by all means, you can take it anytime you wish to. If you want to do it again if you fail. You shouldn't fail. You should be able to do this on a one-trick pony. It should really work for you. We didn't make this too tricky or too hard. We just want you to be aware of the information that's available to you and the huge market that's out there to be done to make chimneys in a better place than they are. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much, and you guys have a great day.